Merry Christmas and welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and today it's Christmas, so we have a best of episode featuring some of the top viewed episodes of all time, plus a few of my favorites thrown in as well. I hope you guys have a great Christmas and happy holidays to you all. Enjoy the episode and rock on, my friends. You guys know I love crazy paint jobs, crackle and splatter, but both on the same guitar. Today we're doing it on a 90s Japanese Jackson. Wait till you see the plan for this one. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and slap that bell to turn on channel notifications. This is Trash to Thrash. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. Hello everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host, Mark Murray, and today we got some firsts on the show. We'll be working on a Jackson model that I'd never even seen in person until I acquired this guitar. This is the body. I got it in a bundle deal where I bought a few guitars off a guy and I got him to throw it in for a great price. I found a neck on eBay that matched up with it about a month later, so I paired them up. It's a 1994 Jackson JSX from the Concept series. This body is made of basswood, and the neck that goes with it is made of eastern maple with a rosewood fretboard, 25.5-inch scale with 22 jumbo frets. To me, this one isn't a full-on super strat because it still has the single coil pickups and 22 frets, but it does have the humbucker, the floating bridge, rear-routed electronics, and a pointy headstock, so it could be perfect for someone going from a strat and dipping their toe into some shred. This guitar is part of Jackson's Concept series, which they debuted in late 1993. They made 4 different models of the Concept, and I actually had a Rhoads Concept in my collection for years. It was one of my main go-to guitars. I loved that thing, it had an incredible neck, and it played great. I love looking at old guitar catalogs, and I'll actually be taking a closer look into this one on this week's Sunday Morning Shred, which is a show I do every Sunday on the Guitar Guts 2 channel. I like to mix it up on there with all kinds of fun different topics like Q&As. I go guitar hunting where I show you guitars currently for sale on eBay and Reverb that I would buy. I show viewer guitars on there, and also talk about behind the scenes things and what's coming up on future episodes of Trash to Thrash. So if you want even more content, go subscribe to the Guitar Guts 2 channel. The link is down in the description below. Here's what Jackson had to say about the Concept series in the 1994 Jackson catalog. The Jackson Concept series is a new range of attractively priced instruments originally released only for the 1993 Christmas season. These instruments were so well received that we're making them a permanent part of the Jackson line. These guitars are all built in the Jackson and Charvel factory rather than subcontracted out to a different factory as so many other manufacturers have done to try to keep prices down. The Concept series offers the guitarist on a budget an opportunity to own a Jackson guitar with all the same high-quality construction as our higher-priced Professional series. The tapered basswood body of the JSX not only makes it extremely comfortable to play, but also offers a tonal spirit that will enhance your music regardless of your playing style. In my opinion, these guitars had incredible necks. The Concept necks are just perfect. There's something about the way that the wood feels, maybe it's the finish, but they are thin and they are fast. I have a few 1992 and 93 Jacksons here in the shop right now, and one of the King V's has a very similar neck. With the Concept series, there's still the JDR and the JDX models, which I haven't come across, and I've rebuilt 3 Jackson Concepts Rhoads. The Purple Tiger, the Alien Blood Rhoads, and the 3rd Tiger Rhoads. Speaking of the Tiger Rhoads, stick around until the end of the episode to get a preview of next week's episode, which is going to be a totally insane striped up Jackson Rhoads, somewhat similar to one of the Tiger Rhoads. Here's a stock image of the guitar from Jackson's 1994 catalog. Since the body and the neck that I have were never assembled and completed, we'll start with this to give us a better visualization of what we're going for. We'll start by refinishing the guitar in navy blue and adding black crackle over it. I'm choosing navy blue because it's a very subtle contrast between black and navy blue, and that's going to make a good base since I'm going to add splatter over it. The splatter I'll be adding is a color called Brilliant Blue. It would be a bit too distracting if I added a bright color for the crackle, since I'm going to be adding a bright color for the splatter. And what I'm expecting is from a distance you may not even see the crackling. It may just look like splatter from far away. Now to add even more contrast to the build, I'm throwing white pickups in this guitar. A set of white EMG HSS pickups, along with a toggle switch to control a boost circuit. For the bridge, I'm going to be using a Goto 1996T in chrome. I've used these a few times before and have been very happy with them. Of course, you guys know me, I gotta throw on an Iron Age LED kill switch with a white LED. Of course I could have gone blue, but for this guitar, I thought the white was gonna look awesome with the electronics. And we'll cap this thing off with a set of Goto tuners in chrome, and while we're at it, we're gonna chrome all the screws and all the rest of the hardware out. This guitar's got a lot of unique features compared to all my other builds, so I can't wait to see what this thing looks like in person. If you want to buy the guitar that's featured in this week's episode, it'll be available for sale right when this episode ends. That is, if you're watching this episode live. You can head over to guitarguts.com and it's going to go in the guitars for sale section, and I'm going to link to that directly below in the description below. Last week's guitar sold within 1 minute of the show ending, so if you want this thing, you better act quick. We only made one. If you want another one and the one already sold, I can do another one, so if it's not available at the website, send me an email, mark@guitarguts.com, to buy a guitar similar to this one or one just like it. For most guitars, the first step is to disassemble the guitar, but this one already came in pieces, so I gave it right over to Ryan. He brought it outside, started sanding it down with 600 grit sandpaper on a palm sander. And after a good wipe down with some alcohol, it was into the paint booth for the JSX. The first color going on this guitar is going to be navy blue. And since this guitar is going to be getting black crackle on it, I gave it 3 thicker coats of the blue. Alright, it's now been about 45 minutes since the last coat of the navy blue, and it's time to throw down the crackle. For the crackle, I'm just going to do 1 thick coat of black crackle. And the way that you do it, you have to do it continuously painting quickly because it'll start crackling, and if you don't finish that area, you're going to get black overspray on your black crackle that may not crackle the way you want it to. So you got to kind of move fast and do each section to completion before moving on. The instructions on the side of the can do say if the crackling isn't going well after 5 minutes or so of spraying, you could throw a second coat of crackle on it and it should intensify the crackling. I've actually tried it before and it does do some pretty cool crackling effects. It's a little different than if you were to just do 1 coat. About 10 minutes later, I returned to find a pretty cool crackle pattern on there. Definitely happy with this crackle pattern. I let the crackle dry for about 20 minutes, and then it was time to throw on some splatter. Now this guitar was a non-commissioned custom shop build, so I just bought the guitar, I had an idea for it, and I went for it. Sometimes when I do this, I experiment, like this guitar right here. I'm throwing some splatter on this guitar. I had no idea if the crackle and the splatter was going to look cool together. It's a real subtle blue and black crackle look for the base colors, and then that blue came on at the end and just pops. I really like these 3 colors together, the black and the 2 different blues, and I can tell you, this isn't the last time I'm going to be using these 3 colors together on a guitar. Yeah, check it out. I love this pattern. The splatter looks awesome. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Do you like the splatter and the crackle together? Of course, I got to do the headstock too. Now I'll throw the crackle on that headstock. For this one, I painted the back of the headstock too. There was a couple dings on the back of the headstock that I had to fill, so I figured I'd just paint right over it all, make it look like nothing ever happened. I make my own headstock logos using a vinyl cutting machine called a Cricut. For other blue guitars in the past, I've used a silver logo and I just love the way that looks. So on this one, I did the same thing, metallic silver Jackson logo. Whenever I add a logo to a headstock, I always have another headstock of the same brand right next to me for reference, and I also install the truss rod cover so I have a good idea of the margins I need to work within. Of course, you need to make sure that the logo is straight and parallel to the bottom of the headstock, and you need to keep in mind that when the tuners go in, they're going to have washers around the main post, so you need to put a little space in there for that too. When I do my splatters, I like to spray the paint directly into a cup and just throw it right on the headstock or the body. Then I'll come back with a brush and kind of flick some on to get some smaller particle spray. When I do splatter, I like to do it over the headstock logo. I think it looks cool to go over the logo a little bit, obviously not too much, because you don't want to obscure what it says, but I think it looks cool to have it over the logo. What do you guys think? Do you like it over the logo, or do you think the logo should be over the splatter? And now we're finally ready to throw the first session of clear coat on the guitar, which will consist of 5 to 6 coats of clear. I'm using Spray Max 2K in a can, Glamour High Gloss. When crackle paint dries, it gives off a matte sheen, so to get it to look really good, you have to throw some clear on it. At this point, I haven't really got a good idea of what this guitar is going to look like with the clear because it's got kind of that matte look from the crackle. But after spraying the first round of clear here, it's like oiling wood. We're going to see it brighten up and come to life.
and it looks awesome. You'll see plenty of close-ups later. For now, we're going to add the kill switch hole. With a guitar like this, I knew it was going to need a ton of clear coat, so I actually wanted to drill this after I threw some of the clear coat on it, because after the amount of clear that I'm going to spray on this guitar goes on, that hole is going to get smaller, and I'm going to have to open it back up. But you do run the risk of scratching the surface when you drill something out like this. But at this point, I'm still going to be level sanding it and spraying more clear. So any small scratches it gets are going to sand right out, and the additional clear is going to fill those in. After about 15 coats of clear and a couple hours of sanding, this guitar is now level. And you may be asking, why would you have 15 coats of clear on a guitar? Normally, if it's a one-color guitar, you wouldn't have 15 coats of clear. Maybe you could get away with 3 to 5 coats. But with a guitar that has crackle and splatter, you create all these different textures and different heights with different colors. And you need to get all that stuff level by spraying tons of clear up over the highest level. So to give you a better visual of what I mean, let's say this is the guitar's surface right here. The first color I sprayed on this guitar was navy blue. So I did it in a uniform paint pattern straight across, about 3 coats. And then we went on with the crackle paint, which has an uneven texture. So some of it, you'll actually see the blue, some of it you won't. So it basically can be looked at like that graphically. It creates big cracks in the surface where the black isn't covering at all, and the blue is still exposed. Then after that, I came back and threw splatter on. And splatter's very thick too. So there's spots where the splatter landed just on the crackle. There's spots where it went just on the navy blue. There's spots where it went over both. So we have all these crazy uneven textures over the guitar. So after I do 3 to 5 coats of clear, it's going to bring everything nice and uneven but closer. Some spots will still be lower, some spots will be up higher because it's just building on top of what's already there. Then I come back and do another session, and that's going to get everything fairly even. But the problem with that is when you go to level sand it after this to get a nice smooth mirror-like finish at the end, you're going to sand through back into the paint. So I had to do about another 5 coats here to give me a lot of space on top, and then I can sand down somewhere in the middle here and still be way above my color, but have everything fully encased in clear coat. So for this guitar, I sprayed clear, let it dry for about a week, then I level sanded it with 600 grit sandpaper. I didn't make it perfectly level because there's no way to really get it perfectly level yet, but I at least scuffed the whole surface up and got it somewhat smoothed out. Then I sprayed another 5 coats of clear, let it dry for a week again, did the same thing, sanded it with 600, and I could tell there I was going to need a little more clear because it didn't have that deep, rich look. So I added another 5 coats of clear, and yesterday I level sanded it to get it nice and smooth. You can now see that there's no texture on the guitar. You can't feel any of the crackle, you can't feel any of the splatter. And after I finish sanding this guitar and polishing it, it's going to basically look like a mirror. Alright, now the JSX is all leveled out. It's very smooth, you can't feel anything here, but it still needs to be sanded more. I've used 600 grit sandpaper to get it to this level, but I'm going to have to resand the whole guitar with 800, then 1200, then 1500, and 2000. Each sandpaper that I use gets finer and finer, and it's going to remove the scratches from the previous grit that I used. That's going to take it from this matte finish here up to a shinier look, but then I'm going to get the polish out and polish it up. After a couple hours of sanding and a couple hours of polishing, this thing is looking beautiful, nice and shiny. I'm very happy with the way this one's turning out so far. A lot of the guitars that I rebuild are from the 80s and 90s, so some of them have been played quite a bit. One thing a lot of them benefit from is some fretwork. This guitar, just like last week's guitar, needed to be leveled and recrowned. Fretwork is the next big guitar thing I want to get better at. There's a lot of different techniques and tools to get the job done, and a lot of people have their own ways to do it. So when I did this guitar, I did some different techniques than I did on the last guitar. As far as leveling went, I did it the exact same way as I did the last guitar. I just used my 6-inch StewMac leveling file and leveled everything out. And same with the crowning, I used my StewMac crowning file. Then I quickly sanded them to smooth them all out with 600 grit sandpaper first. Then I used 1200 and 1500 grit sandpaper, and that got them pretty nice. But to get them even shinier, I used micro mesh, which is like a real fine sandpaper. I went up to 3200 grit on that. Then I finished it off with this polishing compound. Now the frets are looking good, but that thirsty fretboard needed some lemon oil. I gave it a healthy serving of that, brushed it in, and let it soak it up. And then I threw in the Goto machine heads. Gotos are my favorite. They're made in Japan, and they're just nice. Check those beauties out. Of course, we're going with chrome for this build. For the kill switch on this guitar, I went with an Iron Age Accessories kill switch. Chrome with a white LED, so it's going to match the pickups. I love Iron Age. They were the first company that I ever saw making these more modern kill switches, and they have excellent customer service. These switches are compatible with both active and passive electronics. Only the LED versions require a battery, so there's no battery required for the non-LED kill switches. And if you already have active electronics in your guitar, you can use the existing battery to power both your active components and the kill switch's LED. Thanks so much to Iron Age Accessories for sending me a kill switch to use on this guitar. Go check them out. I put a discount code in the description below. Guitar Guts. Enter it at checkout for 10% off.
Guys, we're getting down to crunch time on this guitar. We got about 10 days till the episode for this one's going to air. And I just got a phone call from my boy Tommy at EMG. They're sending out the pickups for this guitar, which was such a relief because we're getting down to the point where I sent him an email. He just got back to me, told me he's sending the pickups out right now. We got a set of EMG's white HSS set going in this thing, and I am so excited. So this thing is sponsored by EMG. Guys, if you want some awesome pickups, they're my favorite active pickups out there. The EMG 81, the EMG 85, they're the two classic pickups. They make single coil pickups too, so that's what you're going to see in this guitar. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to rock on these things for you. I'm going to show you what they sound like. I don't know if you guys have heard of a little guitarist named David Gilmour, but he uses EMGs in some of his strats. The clean tones that come out of those neck and middle pickups on this guitar are going to be unbelievable. But check out EMG pickups. Links down in the description to their information. My favorites are the EMG 81 and 60. And that's what James Hetfield uses too. So dropping some big names over here. David Gilmour, James Hetfield, some of the biggest guitarists out there are playing EMGs. And you'll notice I use them in a ton of my builds. I rarely do HSS setups, so this one's really cool. And it's getting some sick pickups. So thanks Tommy over at EMG.
Now for this guitar, we're going to be switching it up. Usually I go with an EMG 81 pickup in the bridge, but this time we're going with an EMG 85. And for the single coils, we're going to be using the EMG SAs. The EMG SA pickups will give you a stronger and warmer tone than the EMG S single coils. The S's give you a lower output and a more stratty tone. The EMG 81 is their highest output bridge pickup. The EMG 85 has slightly less output than an 81, yet still has plenty of output to overdrive an amp. The 85 has more low end and less high end than the 81. Sometimes I like to build guitars with things that I have around, and sometimes I have a specific vision for the guitar, so I'll go seek out parts for it. And originally this one I was using parts that I had got a good deal and had around, but then changed my mind at the last minute and decided I wanted to go with something different, which is the white EMGs. So I didn't necessarily have the vision when I first started the guitar, but as it came together, I kind of saw something different in my head than I originally had pictured. Now it's time to wire them up, and I put some foam underneath the single coils to help stabilize them and give them a little padding to help pop them up a little bit too. Here's the wiring on the guitar. Turned out really nice. You can see we got the master volume. It feeds into a mini toggle switch which controls the preamp. It turns the preamp on and off, which you can see mounted down here at the bottom of the cavity, right above the kill switch. On the right hand side on the wall is the EMG bus, and of course down at the bottom is the pickup selector switch. This control cavity is huge. All these components, and we still have plenty of room for a 9-volt battery, and then a lot of room left over. Now it's time to install the bridge. We'll start here on the back with the tremolo claw. For the bridge on this guitar, I decided to go with the Goto 1996 T floating bridge. It's a direct replacement for a Floyd Rose that just drops right in. For most guitars, there's no modification needed. I've used these on a few of my builds now. You may remember I put a gold one in the Alexi Rhoads in Season 2, I put a black one in the Crackle Kelly, and now I'm throwing a chrome one in the Jackson JSX. Everything I've read about these things online is amazing, people love them, and I do too. I even plan on switching some of my personal guitars over to them in the future. Gotoh makes amazing stuff. I use their tuners and their hardware on almost all the guitar builds that I do, and I really like the look of the bridge. I like how the saddles are satin, but the rest of the bridge is regular shiny reflective metal. They just look so cool. Have you guys ever used a Gotoh 1996T? What's your favorite bridge to use? I know there's a lot of Floyd Rose purists out there, but there's also a lot of Floyd Rose haters too. On this guitar, I'm installing a tremolo stopper because the shape of the tremolo hole on the top of the guitar doesn't exactly fit a Floyd Rose or even this Gotoh bridge. The screws hung over the body just a little bit, so I'm going to stop the bridge from moving backward so it'll never even touch the body. I even shimmed the neck just a tad so it'd give it a little more clearance there. Now this thing's just about ready to show you guys, but I got one more thing to show you before I show you that. Alright guys, most of you have probably seen the LTD Explorer saga I recently went through. If you haven't, I encourage you to go watch it by clicking the link in the description to the LTD Explorer playlist. The story of how I acquired this guitar was kind of crazy, so it's fun to go watch, check it out. Last week, I disassembled the guitar. For this guitar, I'm keeping close track of the time I'm spending on it, and so far, I've got about an hour into it. Not only am I documenting the rebuild here on Trash to Thrash each week, I'm going way more in depth over on my Patreon. If you sign up to my Patreon, you have access to those videos where I go real in depth, almost real time, rebuilding this guitar and telling you guys exactly what I'm doing with each tool, and I encourage you guys to build a guitar alongside me by doing the same things I do each week on the show, and by the end of the season, we should have some awesome new guitars. Anyone who's building a guitar alongside me and using the tips I show in these videos, let me know, and I'll share your guitar at the end of the season on a special episode of Sunday Morning Shred. Now, one tip when you're sanding a guitar is you can see there's some sticker residue on this guitar. You need to get that off before you start sanding, because if you start sanding over it, the sandpaper probably won't penetrate the adhesive, and you're going to make a little high spot there. I like to use lighter fluid or naphtha to remove sticker residue. When I sand guitars, I always like to go outside because it puts dust in the air. And also wear a dust mask, that's really important. For this guitar, I use 600 grit sandpaper on a palm sander. You can see I'm moving in circular motion, and I'm not putting additional pressure down on the guitar. I'm just letting the sandpaper do its work. This guitar is in really rough shape. The previous owner had carved all kinds of phrases into the back of the guitar that went through the paint into the wood. You can see I went down to the wood in a couple spots on the back, and I had to stop sanding because I didn't want to go through the sealer. Then I would need to apply more sealer, and it's just an extra step I don't want to get into. I real quickly ran the palm sander up and down the back of the neck a few times with 600 grit sandpaper. This isn't the best sander for a neck, obviously, because the neck is so curved, but it will help us get in the ballpark of where we want to be getting this neck sanded, and then we'll switch to hand sanding. This body and neck were so beat up, it's never taken me this long to sand down a guitar. This took me about an hour and a half to do. There was a few different layers of paint on this guitar, but we got it done and it's ready for the next step next week, which is going to be to start filling some of these holes, applying some Bondo, and getting it prepped for paint. If you want to watch the full videos of me disassembling, it's about a 30 to 40 minute video for each step. Go sign up to the Patreon page. If you're already a patron, go check the Patreon page because video 2 is up now. And I give a lot more tips than I said here on sanding a guitar. Alright guys, are you ready? Remember, this is how the JSX came into me. Just a body. And now... Well, what do you guys think about this monster? I absolutely love it. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think of the splatter and the crackle together? The white EMGs, HSS pickup configurations. This guitar certainly had some interesting things on it compared to my other builds. Splatter with crackle. Has that ever been done? I get ideas like flat black with gloss black for the stealth combo, or even the alien blood splatter, the green Frankenstrat. I didn't see anyone do these ideas before I did, and I'm pretty sure people have thought of them, just maybe nobody's executed them yet. Thanks to EMG for sponsoring this episode. I want to remind you guys to check out the link in the description to go check out their product line and pick up a set and see for yourself. Do you want to send your guitar in to be featured on the show? If you want me to rebuild your guitar, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com and we could talk about the plan for how to take your guitar and turn it into something truly custom just for you. Thanks to everyone who commented and liked last week's episode about the Purple Crackle LTD. The guitar sold about 1 minute after the show ended, which was the fastest a guitar has ever sold for me, so that was insane. I got a few other people who wanted the guitar, but I only make one of each. I let everybody know who wanted the guitar that I also have an LTD M100, the exact same model, ready to start over here, as well as an M207, the 7-string version of the same guitar, both ready. So if you want a 6 or a 7-string version of that guitar or some variation of it, send me an email and let me know. I also want to say thanks so much for all the great feedback you guys left on last week's episode. I reacted and responded to some of my favorite comments over on my show Sunday Morning Shred, which can be found on my second channel, Guitar Guts 2. I'll put a link to that in the description down below. Please subscribe to the second channel too. Even if you aren't into the other guitar content that I create, it's just a really easy way to help out and to help support this channel. Over there, I do a show called Sunday Morning Shred every Sunday where I talk about guitars, I answer your guys' questions, I respond to comments, I show you cool or interesting guitars that I found on eBay and Reverb that week. I share your guys' creations on there, and I even play some of your bands. I also show behind the scenes footage and extra scenes and extra things that don't make it into the episode, raw footage, all things Trash to Thrash related. This week on the channel, I actually posted a shop tour where I went around and showed you guys everything here in the Guitar Guts shop. You know, inside my cabinets, everything. So it's really cool. Go check that out. Subscribe to the second channel. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Rock on, my friends. And go buy that guitar if you're interested. It's up for sale now.
Next week on Trash to Thrash, I'll be refinishing and modifying a Jackson Rhoads to be built for a king. Kerry King, that is. We're throwing the ESP Kerry King finish from the 90s onto a Jackson Rhoads. If you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen a preview of this guitar, and it looks so cool. Be sure to return next Thursday, and remember you can always find the show directly at guitarguts.tv. Do me a favor and go share this episode on your social media. It helps out a ton. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.
The Kerry King ESPs from the 90s, they had some sick finishes on them. Today we're throwing a Kerry King finish on a Jackson Rhoads. It's a Rhoads fit for a king. Be sure to hit the like button, definitely hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell to be notified when new episodes drop. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and today we'll be rebuilding a customer's guitar. Henry sent me an email with some photos of the Jackson Rhoads that he wanted me to refinish and upgrade. We brainstormed together and we came up with a really cool design that I've never seen on a Rhoads before. My customer Henry bought this guitar over 7 years ago at his local Sam Ash for about $200. He said I was out of high school and going to college, so I didn't have much money. It was in rough shape, but I figured it'd be a nice project to restore the guitar and slowly repair it in time. However, I quickly found out I was in way over my head. The guitar remained mostly unplayed for the next couple of years, and last year I got the motivation to try and fix it myself again. I bought a new neck for it. You can't have a Jackson Rhoads without shark fin inlays. I was looking at videos of people who fix guitars on YouTube when I came across your channel, and well, here we are now. Over the years, there's a few key guitars that have just really stuck out to me and really inspired me. Obviously, the Frankenstrats are probably number one, but some of Kirk Hammett's guitars are just so awesome. I love the Mummy and the Ouija guitar. They're just too cool. But another huge one for me was the Kerry King ESPs. He had a couple ESPs that were just unreal.
When I first saw these guitars, I was already making Frankenstrats and doing bursts on guitars, but I was looking for some fresh inspiration, and man did I find it. I did the first Tiger Rhoads using a burst and then masking the guitar with hand-cut tape as my stencils to make the pattern. I had a different style to my stripes, so I've always wanted to recreate the Kerry King pattern.
So there are a few different versions of Kerry King's ESPs. Here in the 1995 ESP catalog, you can see the KK Standard and the KK Custom. The KK Standard featured a mahogany body and neck with a Kaler Pro tremolo, rosewood fretboard, diamond inlays, 24 extra jumbo frets, an EMG PA2, and a set of EMG 81 pickups. Now here's where it gets a little interesting. The KK Custom is a neck through body version with red and black crackle finish and eagle inlays. The interesting part of this to me is that they called this a red and black crackle finish. To me this looks like gold with black crackle on it. Then they laid down a stencil or some masking tape and sprayed it red. This is from the 1995 ESP catalog, and here you can see the same two models were available. But this here is the model that inspired me the most. I saw this paint job and thought it was so awesome. This is the one that we're going to be doing today on a Jackson Rhoads. I've never really seen anybody duplicate this paint job, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing. We're basically going to be duplicating it, but we're going to be making it fit onto a Jackson Rhoads body. We'll go over the full plan for this guitar as we go through the episode. For now, I handed this guitar off to my assistant Ryan, who took it apart, sanded it, and got it prepared for the paint booth. This guitar had some chipped up corners, so after we do any repairs like that, I always like to give the guitar a nice base coat of matte black. It works as a primer against any bare wood that we may have exposed, and also gives us a really nice reference to see if the guitar is perfectly flat and ready for its real colors. Plus, since I'm using Rust-Oleum 2X matte black, it dries really quick, so I can start working on it again the next day and prepping it for its final colors. Fast forward a few days, and the guitar has now been sanded with 600 grit sandpaper. It's ready for its final colors. The Kerry King guitar we're duplicating is red on black, but instead of black and just regular red, we're going to do a bright red to crimson red burst. And this looks good. It's a subtle burst, but it's going to make the center of the guitar pop just a little bit. The little things are everything. Here's how I plan to duplicate these stripes. Using the old hand-drawn, hand-cut-out tape method definitely isn't going to be the easiest way. So what I did was slowly and precisely trace the stripes on this image. Anywhere there's hardware, I filled in the gap of what I thought would be there. Then I removed the original image of the guitar, leaving only the stripe pattern. Then I converted it to black, and did a little bit of modification to make sure it would fit on a Rhoads. Due to the shape of a Rhoads and being that it's not a symmetrical V like the Kerry King ESP Vs were, we're not going to use the entire stripe pattern, but you can see here how well it is going to fit the guitar. I used Photoshop as seen here to trace the stripes and get the artwork prepared. This took some careful planning, so I brought the guitar into my office, took some measurements, made some notes, and as always we ran into some technical issues. This is the Cricut machine, and the stencil material we'll be cutting up inside it. What made this tricky is I've never used this to make a full guitar overlay. And the Cricut can only cut things 12 inches wide, so I'm going to have to cut this up in sections as shown here. This will be one section, and I'm loading that into Cricut's design space so I can cut that piece first. Now here we go. We're getting the mat and the material loaded into the machine. And now for the next minute or two, the Cricut's going to do its thing. It's really hard to see on here, especially through the camera, but the pattern looks great. Here I'm doing what they call in the craft world weeding the material, or removing all the negative space. That'll leave us just with the stencil that we want to use. This will be for the longer horn of the Rhoads. It looks like it's going to fit great. Now we'll grab the next section of the pattern, which will be this here, and isolated, that looks like this. That should take about this much space of material. The last cut didn't weed as easy as I'd want it to, so I'm going to increase the pressure here. And now we'll cut up the next piece. Now that I've got all the pieces cut up in 3 different sections, we're going to lay them on the guitar to get an idea of if this is enough material or do I need to cut a couple more strips. And this isn't exactly how it's going to lay on, but it gives me an idea because I'm going to put it on stripe by stripe. I'm not necessarily going to transfer it over with transfer tape like this. But as I just lay the pieces on, I can see that this is plenty of striping. All the pieces extend from left to right across the entire guitar, so we're good to go. I had quite a few guitars to paint that day, so I set the stencils aside and came back to it the next day. Now we're back out in the shop and it's time to apply these to the guitar's body. Whenever you mask stripes or use decals or tape on a guitar, always make sure you wash your hands because the oils on your hands can get on the labels and they won't stick to the guitar right. The paint will bleed under the tape and you're not going to get as good of lines. It's also best to use an X-Acto knife to move the labels over to the guitar so you don't get any of the oils from your fingers on that way either. Another thing I did for this one was on the sides of the guitar, I wanted the stripes to come over a little further. The ones on the Kerry King didn't, so I didn't have anything to copy for those, and I just used some masking tape to extend the stripes over a little further. Now imagine when I'm spraying this, anywhere where the decals are, it's going to stay red. So the whole back of the guitar is actually going to be going black when we repaint it. Now I could mask the back of the guitar off and keep it red, but I think the black is going to look awesome. Alright, we're back in the spray booth and it's time to throw the black on the guitar. I'm ready to see this thing with the black and red on it. When I do something where masking or striping is required and I'm doing a burst as one of the stages, I always like to do the burst first because it typically takes a little more paint to get a really good burst with spray cans. You may need to go back and forth and put 3 to 4 coats on, and if you're spraying all that in your second stage over tape, it worries me that the tape isn't going to come off cleanly. If the paint's too thick over it and you start pulling the tape, it could chip the paint away because the paint really encrusted over the edge of the tape. But there's pros and cons either way, because if you do the burst first like I did here, and your second stage, which in this case is the black, bleeds under the tape, I don't have a lot of options for touch-up. If you spray your solid color first and your burst in the second stage, your burst colors could bleed under the tape, but you can come back and touch those up with your first stage solid color. So there's pros and cons to both. But for me, I would never want to take the chance of building up too much paint over the tape and having the tape rip off and chip off some of the paint. And of course, we'll be doing a matched headstock on this guitar. I actually copied some of the lines from the body and changed the size so they'd fit the headstock appropriately, but keep the same look. And of course, then I threw some gloss black over that. After spraying something like this, I'll usually let it sit for between 12 and 24 hours before I pull the tape. If you let it sit too long, again, it could chip off. So you want to get it off fairly quickly, but you definitely need to let the paint cure so that you don't get finger impressions or any type of imperfections in the paint job from messing with the guitar when it's not ready. It kind of depends what paint you're using, how thick you laid it on, and other variables like temperature and humidity. After pulling the tape, I let the guitar sit for a week drying before I threw the clear on. For this guitar, I use SprayMax High Gloss Clear Glamour. They really should be sponsoring the show by now. I use them on almost every single guitar, and I love this stuff. The day I sprayed the clear on this guitar, I was spraying the clear on another guitar on the other side of the spray booth. So here you can see I'm using my neck through jig to paint a bolt-on. I had Ryan make me an adapter so I could use both of my jigs at the same time and paint 2 clear coats instead of 1, because some days I'll spray 6 guitars in one day, and then I can get it done in 3 hours instead of 6. And after a full can of paint, about 6 coats, this thing is looking awesome. Had to take a couple of pictures of it for the gram. Just like with the vinyl stencils for the body, I made the headstock logo using my Cricut machine. But this time I used plain white vinyl, because this isn't going to be a stencil. I'm actually going to be leaving this on the guitar. With some very careful placement, we got a fresh Jackson logo on there. And we'll lock that logo in with some clear coat. Now it's been 7 days since I sprayed the clear, and now it's cured. You can see it has a very reflective surface, but it's very wavy. But as I've talked about so many times in the past, when you do a paint job with different colors at different depths, like this one with the black sitting on top of the red paint, 3 coats higher, you can't expect one stage of clear coat to get everything perfectly smooth. So now what I'm doing is leveling the whole guitar using 600 grit sandpaper, so it's relatively smooth. But to get a mirror-like finish, I'm going to have to sand the guitar a few times using different grits of sandpaper, moving progressively from 600 up to 2000 grit. I use 5 different grits, 600, 800, 1200, 1500, and I finished with 2000. If I sand the guitar using all those grits, I'm definitely going to be burning through this clear coat and into my color. So to prevent all that from ever happening, I'm going to give it a quick level sanding here with 600 grit and bring it back out to the spray booth and throw a bunch more clear on it. And after the second stage of clear coat, you could see how smooth it looks. It looks actually pretty good, but it's not quite showroom quality. Although I do think there's enough clear coat on there now that I could sand using all 5 grits of sandpaper and get that beautiful finish after I polish it. When I hit it with some 600 grit sandpaper, you can kind of see how uneven it really is. It looked pretty smooth, but this is going to get it mirror-like. Already you can start to see it flattening out. I hope you guys are enjoying the episode so far. Let me know what you think of this guitar down in the comments. If you have any other questions while you're watching this episode, leave those down in the comments as well. Each week I look through them and I grab my favorite questions to answer over on my Sunday show, Sunday Morning Shred, over on the Guitar Guts 2 channel. Now there's a second Guitar Guts channel for more behind the scenes stuff, vlogs, Q&As, guitar hunting videos, and other cool community driven content. I'm currently collecting videos to play on there to show off your custom guitars, so if you want to be featured on Sunday Morning Shred with your guitar, send me an email. All my contact info is listed down in the description. And I also want to give a huge shout out to Iron Age Accessories for making these limited edition Trash to Thrash Season 4 guitar picks. They're so cool. If you're a pick collector and you want to help support the show, you can go grab one of those in the link in the description. There's a very limited quantity, so act quick if you want one. Over on the second channel, we recently did a shop tour of the entire Guitar Guts shop. Last week, I did a reading of the 1994-95 Jackson catalog, and this week I got a vlog going up that shows me opening up some of the parts used on the Trash to Thrash Season 4 guitars. Plus, I show you some of my pick collection. So go subscribe to the second Guitar Guts channel, which is listed down below. You could also go sign up to the Patreon page, which I'll be revealing the next giveaway guitar 2 weeks from today here on Trash to Thrash. I'll give you a hint, it's a Korean-made LTD and it is awesome. It's only available to those in the CEO tier of my Patreon, so if you want to be entered into the giveaway, go sign up to that CEO tier of my Patreon. The links to that are listed down below. And after a couple hours of sanding, the entire guitar is sanded to 2000 grit, and you can see how smooth it looks now. But it's not shiny or reflective, and that's where the polish comes in. I have a few different methods on how I polish guitars, but on this guitar, I used the hand drill with some Meguiar's 105 Ultra Cut compound. After the second pass, you can see it's starting to look a little more reflective, but it definitely still has a lot of scratches from the sanding. So I add some more compound to the guitar, give it some buffing, and then wipe it all off. After the third pass using that compound, you can see the scratches are definitely going away, but it's going to need a lot more buffing. This is the process you just have to keep going back and forth, buffing it, and getting those scratches out. If you have stubborn scratches that aren't coming out, you can try using some scratch remover, or you might have to go back and do a little more polish sanding. And this thing is glowing. Colors are nice and vibrant. That gloss is super shiny, and you can see we got that mirror shine going on. Now I'll turn my attention towards the neck for a little bit. The headstock still needs to be sanded and polished, but I'm going to work on the fretboard first. This actually wasn't the neck that came on this guitar. The owner of this guitar, Henry, sent me this neck as a replacement because he wanted a nice binding and some shark fin inlays, and the original neck, also a 24 fret Jackson neck, had dot inlays and no binding. The frets on this neck were in excellent condition, but I did want to oil the fretboard. Rosewood fretboards look so much nicer, hydrated. They get some real character going when they get darkened. After level sanding and polishing the headstock, oh man, that looks awesome. To me, if you're refinishing a guitar with a really cool custom finish, you gotta redo the headstock too. A matched headstock just brings the whole thing together. With some companies, you only get this option in the custom shop because it's a cheaper way to just knock out a ton of black or white headstocks and have them on a shelf ready to go on any guitar you happen to be working on. You see this a lot with the lower and mid-range LTDs, Jacksons, and Ibanez. In this build, we're using my favorite tuners, Goto locking tuners made in Japan. These ones in Cosmo Black, which is such a cool color for hardware.
For this guitar, we're going with the Seymour Duncan Sentient and Nazgul set. Henry wanted the Nazgul in the bridge position, and I actually had a set on hand already. I got these pickups from my buddy Max, who I rebuilt his Les Paul and swapped those pickups out for some EMGs. For this build, we're going to be covering the pickups though with some Cosmo black pickup covers. We'll even be replacing the screws on the pickups, so these things are going to look brand new. The Nazgul and Sentient pickups were designed for 8-string progressive players who wanted super modern tones. An early adopter of these pickups was Tosin Abasi of Animals' Leaders, who had these pickups in his Ibanez signature guitar. Because of him, I actually bought them and I put them in my RG8 and they sounded awesome. They're passive pickups with a high resonance peak, so they give off very clear and balanced high, lows, and mids. They handle gains super well, and the cleans of the Sentient neck pickup are sparkly and clear. Originally, these pickups were only made for 8-string guitarists, but 6-string guitar players demanded that they make them for 6-stringers too, and Seymour Duncan obliged. Here's the completed pickup assembly with the new rings, covers, and screws ready to drop into the guitar. I think these things look super awesome. Now I've dropped in the two Bournes 500K potentiometers, one for the master volume and one for the master tone, with an orange drop capacitor on it. I also used a black 3-way selector switch and all black wiring, so the guitar doesn't even look like it's wired up, does it? Alright, and everything is ready to be assembled. This guitar is basically done. Well, all the real hard work is done. Just gotta attach the neck, throw some strings on it, and crank it up. So let's just jump ahead. You guys ready to see this thing all assembled in all its glory? Ready to have your face shredded off by it? The Cueva Rhoads, built for Henry Cueva. Inspired by the Kerry King ESPs of the early 90s. Equipped with Cosmo black hardware, Seymour Duncan Nazgul and Sentient pickups, matching Goto locking tuners, tune-o-matic, and knobs. What a thing of beauty. It's got class. It looks deadly. I love it. Let me know in the comments what you thought about this thing. Thanks so much for watching the episode this week, everybody. Let me know in the comments what you think of this week's guitar, and also what do you think of Cosmo black hardware? It's quickly become one of my favorite hardware finishes. Of course, that in gold. Next week on the show, I'm going to have an insane pair of Wolfgangs for you guys. One of them is a Wolfgang I've only seen Eddie play one time. There's only one video of him playing it, and it's of him playing it in Japan. So it's a pretty obscure one. The other Wolfgang is one that we took an old classic EVH finish and threw it on a modern Wolfgang. So it's one I've never done before, one many of you have probably never even seen before, and certainly one I've never seen thrown on a Wolfgang. Leave your guesses down in the comments. Let me know what you think it is. Just don't be rude. That's a little hint for the hardcores. Be sure to go subscribe to the Guitar Guts 2 channel. Every Sunday on there, I do the Sunday morning shred. This week, I got a Q&A coming up with a ton of real fun questions that you guys submitted. I also threw up a vlog of me opening up some new parts that are going to be used in Season 4 of Trash to Thrash. And I show you guys some of my favorite guitar picks from my collection. Speaking of picks, go grab yourself a Guitar Guts Season 4 limited edition pick at my website. The link to that is in the description down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. Rock on, my friends. Here's a little sample of the Sentient pickup I was talking about earlier in the episode, how great its cleans were, so here are some of them. Silvertone guitars. They're not exactly what you think of when you think of metal guitars, but do they have the potential to be? Today we'll be turning a Paul Stanley signature Silvertone into a super custom, super metal beast, the Hellspawn. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified each time a new episode is released. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. This season, I'll be rebuilding guitars sent in by fans of the show. I'll be rebuilding 14 guitars over 14 weeks, each with a unique and interesting backstory. I'll be refinishing, refretting, rewiring, whatever it takes to make these things into the guitars of their dreams. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody, I'm Mark Murray and I welcome you to another episode of Trash to Thrash, the show where each week I take old beat up guitars and turn them into killer custom axes. And this week is no different. This week I'm going to be working on my customer Joseph's Silvertone Sovereign. It's a Paul Stanley signature guitar, Paul Stanley of course from the band Kiss, and boy does Joseph have a crazy plan for it.
Here's a closer look at how Joseph's Silvertone Sovereign showed up at the shop. This guitar is the signature model of Paul Stanley of Kiss. Joseph bought this guitar about 15 years ago, and ever since he bought it, he's had plans to resurrect it and turn it into what he calls the Hellspawn. These guitars originally came in black, and when Joseph got it, it was black, but he refinished it in this green color. It's actually a really cool color, but for Hellspawn, it doesn't really fit. Here's an ad from between 2003 and 2004 showing Paul Stanley and Silvertone working together. This is him playing the Pro model, but they also made a more affordable special model shown here, which is what this guitar was. It looks almost identical to the Pro model, but this one doesn't have the binding, and it's sold off the shelf in a box as shown here, which is kind of unconventional for most guitars.
When I build custom guitars for people, I love to hear the backstory. I like to hear their motivation, why they want the guitar to look the way it does, what inspired it, how long have they had the guitar, and I asked the owner of the Hellspawn, Joseph, these questions and more. He replied, "I bought this guitar in 2006 for $20. At the time, I was making weird computer music and wanted it to be more guitar-based. I wanted to move away from just programming everything and get a band together again. I had a whole plan in my head for making this guitar a wild centerpiece of a live metal hardcore show. Anyway, life happened and I moved away from metal and guitars for a long time. I always kept the guitars I had and intended to play them again. I wanted to work on the Hellspawn many times, but I just never had the chops to do it right. I experimented with painting it, but then couldn't get the electronics soldered back together. I recently moved and a bunch of stuff changed in my life and I started enjoying metal again. And by metal I mean stuff like deathcore, the Black Dahlia Murder, Swamp Beast, and Lorna Shore. I pretty much only really like the heaviest stuff I can find. Like, why have metal and then water it down with clean singing, sea shanties, or lullabies, or whatever else people like to stick in their metal breakdowns? That's always been my metal operandi. Balls to the wall heavy. I'm still learning to play again. I'm better than I was back in 2006, but still not great yet or comfortable playing anything publicly. But this guitar has been with me for so long and I figured now is the time for it to achieve its ultimate form that it was always intended to be. The heaviest death metal hardcore machine, Hellspawn."
The way this guitar sits now, it definitely does not say Hellspawn. It looks like some kind of surf guitar. So the plan for this one is going to be to refinish it in black with a red burst on the edges. That way it looks like it's glowing, like it's from hell. And for the electronics, we're going to go with a set of bare knuckle pickups, an Iron Age kill switch with a red LED to match the glowing edges of the body, and a set of push-pull switches for each pot so that we're going to be able to control pickup selection, series parallel, and coil tapping. We'll do a matched headstock on it. We'll also be upgrading the tuners to a set of Goto locking tuners. We're going to build a new custom truss rod cover for it, and we'll christen the headstock with the guitar's new name, Hellspawn. Most of the guitars we build here start out with the same steps. I hand it off to Ryan, my shop assistant. He disassembles the guitar, organizes the parts, and sands it down. Gets it ready for me to start painting. This guitar needed quite a bit of work to get the body in good condition. So to get all the chips and dings filled in, I used wood filler and let it dry for about a day. They say you can start sanding on it and working on it in 15 minutes to an hour, but I found it's better to let it dry and fully cure for at least 24 hours. The neck actually had 2 different sets of tuners installed, so I'll fill all those holes, and you can see on the back of the neck there's a ton of little dings and dents. Whoever originally owned this must have constantly leaned it up against things and just slammed it down. You can see how much stuff I had to fill. This neck was in pretty bad condition. So I came back the next day and then level sanded it with my palm sander using 600 grit sandpaper. I sanded the back of the neck using 800 grit sandpaper. I didn't want to gouge into the neck using a palm sander, so I did it all by hand. A palm sander is really designed to be used on a flat surface, and since the back of the neck is curved, there's going to be a real small point of contact between the sander and the neck, meaning it's going to put a lot of pressure on the neck and probably gouge in. Now this body's looking good, and it's time to bring it into the paint booth and spray the first color on it, gloss black. I typically do 3 coats of the base color, and I'll come back and add the red on top of it. Chances are I'll have to add a little bit of black because I'll probably get a little bit of spray over on the black. But for the burst, I'm not going to be using rattle cans. If I were to try to use rattle cans for a burst, I would get tons of overspray. For this, I'll be using an airbrush, which you still get some overspray, but it's going to be significantly less than the aerosol spray cans. This is my new airbrush that I got from StewMac. It's a single action airbrush, and for things like bursts or solid color painting, it's a great airbrush. But if you want to do something that has more intricate artwork, you'd want a dual action airbrush, which in the future I'm definitely going to be picking up so I can do some lightning graphics and other types of really cool airbrush graphics. To get a clean black to red burst, that would be nearly impossible using aerosol cans. You might be able to do certain bursts with certain colors, but not black to red. I started building custom guitars years back because I wanted to have cool custom guitars for myself. There was no plan to ever sell them or work on other people's guitars, I just wanted to have cool guitars for my collection. To be honest, I never really even had plans to get good at painting. I just wanted to paint some Frankenstrat replicas for myself, which don't really have to be perfect if they're relict. But as time went on, I started to build cooler guitars with more interesting paint jobs, still using spray paint for my colors. I've been slowly upgrading and building my shop up, buying new tools and learning new techniques as needed. I recently just bought an airbrush to do better and cleaner bursts. You could see on the Hellspawn the burst is very smooth and nice, but I had to work really hard to get it like that. One of my big next steps to upgrade my finishes will be to invest in a line of paint colors that I keep on hand that I could run through my air compressor powered HVLP gun. Then I'll be completely off the aerosol spray can train. For the Hellspawn, we're also color matching the headstock, so I used the airbrush for that too. Earlier when I painted the body black, I also painted the neck black, because the back of the body, the neck, and the headstock are all going to be matte black. I love the look of a guitar that you flip over and it's just all matte black. Plus, the feel of matte black on the neck is very superior over a gloss finish. It helps you slide around a lot easier and it's just very comfortable. We'll also be replacing the logo with a red logo, but it's not going to say Silvertone, it's going to say Hellspawn, because this is hardly a Silvertone anymore. Silvertone was introduced as a brand in 1916 and was sold through the old Sears catalogs. They sold radios and other consumer electronics, but they started selling musical instruments in the 1930s. Some of the old classic Silvertones from the 1960s are actually highly sought after, but most Silvertones are more aimed towards the beginner level market. In 2001, Samick bought Silvertone and started releasing some of the old classic models again, and in 2003, that's when they met up with Paul Stanley and started building his signature models. I remember being a young boy and looking through my mom's record collection and finding a couple of Kiss records. One of them was Destroyer, and it was one of the coolest album covers I had ever seen at the time. I didn't really know Kiss's music, but I thought their look was so cool. I loved how each character had their own take on the style, their story, everything about the look. And that's one of the things that made Kiss so successful. Kiss is a band that just won't go away. They've had multiple reunion and farewell tours, and the story with Silvertone and Paul Stanley started around 2003 when Kiss was coming back for one of their final farewell tours. They struck a deal and started making 2 different signature models for Paul Stanley, the Sovereign, which this model is, and another one that was a little more extreme, like a Flying V kind of guitar. Although he doesn't play Silvertones anymore, Paul Stanley did use these guitars on 2 Kiss live albums, so Silvertone will be forever linked with Kiss and Paul Stanley. Earlier I had thrown on the clear coat, so now the guitar is waiting and drying. During that time, Ryan and I are working on some other side projects. One of them being the truss rod cover. My shop assistant Ryan is a really good fabricator, so that's why I went to him to build a new custom truss rod cover for this guitar. We needed something really cool that was going to fit that name. Whenever I need custom metal work done, I always go to Ryan because he's really good at this kind of stuff. The original Paul Stanley truss rod cover and pickguard were made of mirror, which is cool, but it's not going to fit this guitar. So we did away with the pickguard completely, and we made a custom truss rod cover. We started by tracing the old truss rod cover and then modifying it onto this piece of steel. Then Ryan cut it out with his grinder. The grinder is a great tool, but it leaves some real rough edges on the part, so Ryan finished off the edges with the belt sander. This is going to leave everything real smooth. Then Ryan added some mounting holes, starting with a pilot hole. Then he opened the hole up to the appropriate size. Then he finished it up with this chamfer bit, which is going to allow the screws to sit flush and be countersunk into the truss rod cover. After Ryan finished cutting out the truss rod cover, he gave it to me to paint. I painted it gloss black to start. Then I came back and hand painted the side edges red. Since the headstock has the same burst as the body, this is going to be a really cool touch, especially when we put the Hellspawn logo on it. After a touch of polish, this thing looks great. To level sand this guitar, I used Super Acrylic sandpaper made by Eagle Abrasives. Whatever technology they use to make this sandpaper is very impressive. It's way better than any sandpaper I've used. It seems to last forever and can be cleaned off and reused. They sell a pack that comes with 600 grit, 800 grit, and 1200 grit sandpaper, which all have a Velcro back that could be attached to the included sanding block / interface pad. Eagle Abrasives says you only need to sand to 1200 with this product, and then you can start using your cutting compounds. I found this to be true, but you need to use a lot of cutting compound to get those scratches out. Typically, before I started using this type of sandpaper, I would sand to 2000, and then I would do 3 to 5 passes using Meguiar's 105 cutting compound. That would remove almost all the scratches. Using this sandpaper system, I'm finding I need to still buff it 7 or 8 times at least. But it's still a lot less work to buff it out a bunch of times than it is to sand the guitar over and over. I do my final polishing with Meguiar's 205 compound. I like using Meguiar's 105 and 205 combo. If you paint guitars or cars or anything like that, and you do buffing, leave your comment down below and let me know what system you like to use for buffing and polishing. On this guitar, we'll be adding a kill switch up here where the old selector switch was on the guitar. I drilled it out before we did the final paint job on the guitar, but after throwing the clear and everything on, the kill switch isn't fitting in. So I used a round file to gently remove some of the material from the inside of that hole. When you use a file on a guitar that's already finished, notice that I'm only filing downward. When I come back up, I'm actually lifting it off because I don't want it to chip upward and pull the paint off the top. It only needed a small adjustment, but now it fits in there perfectly. I already extended the wires for the kill switch and ran them through the body, and then added the back cover on. Now it's time to continue wiring it up and add the pickups. But they're not fitting in the body, so we're going to have to do some more modification. For this, we get the face shield out and the Dremel. For this, I'm just moving real slowly, just taking out a little bit of material at a time. It doesn't need to have a ton removed, but I'll still do it in a couple of passes just to be extra careful. Now the neck pickup fits perfect, and I got to do the same thing for the bridge pickup cavity. For this guitar, my customer Joseph chose to use some bare knuckle pickups. This is the first time I've used bare knuckle pickups, so I'm really curious to see how they sound. They have a ton of different models, but these are the War Pigs. He got them in black with black screws and bolts. Bare Knuckle says they designed these pickups to be an extremely high output pickup with a raw guttural tone and a smooth high end. They were originally made to be just all-out extreme metal pickups, but people have been finding that they work really good for jazz and fusion and all kinds of different genres. Next, I reinstalled the bridge bushings, which needed to be drilled out a little bit, and same with the output jack. Today I'll be using the Seymour Duncan wire diagram to wire up these bare knuckles. They use the exact same color code, so that'll work perfectly. We're going to do some tricky stuff with the wiring, so we'll be using this section of the diagram with the coil splitting and the series parallel for the push-pulls. For this guitar, we'll be using 3 push-pull switches attached to pots, like these. This big square piece mounted to the back of the pot is actually a toggle switch. These toggle switches will be able to control the pickup selection, coil splitting, and series parallel control. These are the awesome knobs that my customer sent me to put on the guitar. They were custom made by someone on Etsy, and I'm not sure if they're even for sale anymore. I think he grabbed the last 4 that were for sale. This guitar is going to have a master volume and individual tones for each pickup. But when you pull up on the volume, it's going to be a pickup selector. Notice there's no pickup selector on this guitar, so that push-pull switch on the volume is going to act as a switch between the bridge and the neck pickup. When you pull it up, it'll go to the neck pickup. When it's pushed down, it'll play the bridge. This is a cool trick that George Lynch uses to switch the pickups on his ESP guitars. They have 2 pickups, but if you notice, they always have 1 volume knob and no selector switch. The second knob is the neck tone, but when you pull it up, it'll activate a coil split on the neck pickup. The third knob is going to be the bridge tone, and when you pull that one up, it's going to activate a series parallel switch. So when it's down, it'll be in series like a regular humbucker, and when you pull it up, it'll put the 2 coils of the humbucker into parallel and give an alternate, brighter tone. The wiring on this guitar is all finished up, and so is the LED on the kill switch. You can see when I plug in the cable, it activates the light on the kill switch. The red LED accents the paint perfectly.
This episode of Trash to Thrash is sponsored by Iron Age Guitar Accessories. You guys know I'm obsessed with kill switches. I put them in basically every guitar I build, but Iron Age makes a lot of other really cool stuff too, including custom picks. Here's a couple of Guitar Guts custom picks that they made me, and they do custom engraving, all kinds of different cool materials. You can see this one here is a acrylic spearhead. And they even make the pick of destiny. How cool is that?
I also recently just got some custom Guitar Guts knobs made with glow-in-the-dark fill on the top. This is now going to be an option moving forward when people order custom guitars.
These knobs are only available through me, so DM me or email me if you want them. But if you want to get your own custom engraved knobs with glow-in-the-dark filler in them, go hit up Iron Age Accessories. Of course, use GG-10 at checkout. You get 10% off using my code. So go click the link down in the description. Use the code GG-10 at checkout. Get 10% off your custom kill switches, knobs, picks, whatever. I love these guys and I think you will too.
Alright, it's time for another one of my guitar updates. As many of you know, I had over 50 guitars in my collection at one point. I started rebuilding the guitars and selling them, trying to get my collection down to a more manageable level, somewhere around 20 guitars. Well, I've finally done it. I've hit 20 guitars. Since the last episode, the Stealth Splatter Kelly has sold, and I've also had the 4th guitar giveaway on my Patreon page, this time for the Jackson Roswell replica. I've now given away the Ibanez Proline V, the 94 Jackson Rhoads Concept, the Crackle Kelly, and the Roswell. Next up on the Patreon giveaways is going to be this Frankenstrat. It's equipped with the Seymour Duncan JB Humbucker, a Kaler Floating Bridge, and a Guitar Guts LED kill switch. To be entered into the raffle, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. It's $10 a month, but I always offer a free way to enter the contest too, so follow me on Instagram for opportunities to get in without being a patron. The links to my Patreon and my Instagram are down below in the description. The Stealth Splatter Kelly was actually part of a trade-in deal. Somebody traded cash and a guitar for the Stealth Splatter Kelly. That's a new thing I'm starting to do, is accept trade-ins as part of the credit for somebody's rebuild. So if you want your guitar rebuilt by me, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com. And if you have an old guitar that you think I may be interested in that you no longer want, I might accept it in as a trade-in. I'm always looking for cool new projects to work on, and I'm often contacted by people who buy project guitars and never end up working on them, and I end up taking them in as trade-ins or buying them from them. Next, I installed the tuners, which are a set of Goto locking tuners, but they're not really fully seating into the headstock. So we're going to open the holes in the headstock just a little bit using this reamer. This is a great tool. You don't need to measure anything. It just slowly removes material. If you're real gentle with it, it's an excellent tool. These holes turned out really nice on the front and the back, but if you get too crazy with the reamer, you will chip the paint. Now the tuners dropped right in, and this headstock looks great. You may have noticed it earlier, but this is the first real good view you guys have got of the headstock logo for the Hellspawn. My customer picked out this font, and I think it looks awesome. What do you think? Let me know what you think about this logo down in the comments below. These tuners had a completely different hole pattern than the original tuners, so we filled in the original holes and drilled new ones here. Now the final steps were to install the neck, string it up, do the intonation, and set the height of the bridge. My customer Joseph wants this guitar set up in drop C, so that means it's going to be tuned a full step down, and then the top string is going to be dropped down another full step. Normal strings wouldn't be able to handle this tuning. It's a bit too low. They'd be flopping all over the place, so we're going to go with the real heavy gauge. We'll be using Ernie Ball's Premium Cobalt Strings 5612 set. Not even slinky. And now, are you ready for the reveal of the Hellspawn? It has finally achieved its ultimate form that it was always intended to be. The heaviest death metal hardcore machine. The Hellspawn. Wow. Look at this thing. I'd say we nailed exactly what Joseph was going for here. I love the theme of this guitar. I love the color choice. I love the knobs and the pickup selection. My customer Joseph nailed this guitar with the design and the vision. So a huge thanks to Joseph for bringing this guitar and this concept to me. I had a ton of fun creating it. The glowing headstock with the Hellspawn logo and the custom truss rod cover. I love the way this thing turned out. We got to start making more custom truss rod covers and pieces that go on guitars like this that match the concept of the guitar, because I love the theme of this thing. What do you think? Let me know down in the comments what you think of the Hellspawn. Do you like it better than the original Paul Stanley guitar? I definitely do, and I can't imagine what Paul Stanley would say if he saw it. He'd probably want it, I'm guessing, because in my opinion, this thing's way radder than when it started. Now let's plug it in and hear how these bare-knuckle war pigs sound.
Alright guys, so what'd you think of Hellspawn? I think this guitar turned out so cool. I was never really a big fan of Kiss's music, and I'm not really a big fan of Gibson SGs, but I think the body shape on this guitar and Joseph's vision really turned out cool. I think it looks awesome. So let me know down in the comments what you guys thought of the guitar. Be sure to hit the like button on this video, and I want to tell you guys thank you so much for watching the episode. Keep sharing it on your social media. I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out and a thank you to my sponsor, Iron Age Guitar Accessories. Remember, their links are down in the description below with the discount code, so if you want to go get a kill switch, those are the guys to go to. Also, go to GuitarGuts.com if you want to get the Guitar Guts signature kill switch, or if you want to get my signature pedal, the Kill Boost pedal. Both of them are available over at GuitarGuts.com, along with the Guitar Guts gallery. I just updated it, and it's really cool to look through. You can see a bunch of the custom guitars I've done over the last 2 years or so. There's actually a ton of them on there, so go click the gallery link at the top of GuitarGuts.com. Remember, if you want to be part of the Guitar Guts monthly guitar raffle, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. This month I'm going to be giving away the Jackson Roswell replica that I built back on episode 20 of Trash to Thrash. It's an awesome guitar. It's got an EMG 81 in chrome in the bridge, a Floyd Rose original, Jackson replica body painted in an awesome purple glitter finish, and a real authentic Jackson neck. So it's a killer guitar. Next month I'm going to be giving away another awesome guitar that I built here in the Guitar Guts custom shop, and I'll be revealing that guitar very soon to you guys. It's not quite done, but it's going to be the first time I've given away one of these. It's one of the most popular things people are always asking me about, so be sure to sign up to my Patreon page. Like I said, the CEO tier, the links are down below if you want to be part of my monthly guitar raffles. I also pull a couple extra names every time and give away a couple kill switches and some other stuff, so there's always some runner-up winners as well. And remember, you can find this show directly at guitarguts.tv. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next week. Rock on, my friends. James Hetfield, he's the explorer-wielding frontman of Metallica. He's written some of the greatest heavy metal riffs of all time, and he's one of my favorite guitar players. Today I'm going to be building a replica of one of Papa Het's explorers, Rusty. Be sure to click the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified every Thursday when a new episode drops. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. This season, I'll be rebuilding guitars sent in by fans of the show. I'll be rebuilding 14 guitars over 14 weeks, each with a unique and interesting backstory. I'll be refinishing, refretting, rewiring, whatever it takes to make these things into the guitars of their dreams. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to Trash to Thrash, Season 2, Episode 1. I'm your host, Mark Murray, and I specialize in buying old beat-up guitars and rebuilding them, turning them into killer shred machines. Today I'm going to be looking for a couple new projects to start, and I'll begin by looking in my regular places I always search: eBay, Reverb, and Craigslist. There's a ton of other awesome places you can find guitars at a great deal: garage sales, swap meets, pawn shops. If you let people know that you're looking for used gear, you'd be surprised how many people have an old guitar in their closet that they'll pull out and sell you for 40 or 50 bucks too. I've also used Facebook Marketplace and apps like Let Go and local selling apps to find great deals on gear. I'm always on the search for new gear, looking for Jacksons, LTDs, Explorers, Wolfgangs, anything I can find that's beat up that I can fix into something awesome. So today we're going to be looking for a specific Jackson Rhoads for my customer Marcel. He said he wants the guitar to have a Floyd Rose bridge and have the electronics routed through the back of the guitar so there's no pickguard on the front. He also said that he'd love it to have 24 frets, shark fin inlays, and if he could, set neck or neck through construction, but if all other requirements are met, he'll take a bolt-on.
I know there's a few different models that'll work for this, so I've been looking around for a few different guitars out there, but I think I found the one today. It's a Jackson RR XMG Rhoads. It's a great guitar with a basswood body, maple neck. It's got a rear routing, it's got 24 frets, shark fin inlays. I mean, this thing is almost perfect. With a little bit of modification, it will be perfect. A lot of times when I'm buying on eBay or Reverb, I'll check out the seller store and see if they have any other items I might want to buy. If you put together a bundle deal and give them a lower price, they might take 50 or 100 bucks off each item. And if you're willing to invest in a few guitars at once, you might save yourself a couple $100 right there. As I was searching this guy's page, I found another guitar that I really wanted. It was an Epiphone Explorer Gothic.
The Epiphone Explorer Gothic is based on the original Gibson Explorer from 1958, but they came completely blacked out. Matte black finish, black pickguard, all black hardware, and they were awesome. They made Gothic Explorers, Vs, Les Pauls, and SGs. At first they started with Gibsons, but later expanded the line to include Epiphones, and some of the Epiphone models even had Floyd Rose bridges, which was awesome because you don't really get that a lot on Gibson and Epiphone guitars.
I've always loved the Gibson Gothic series ever since it came out around the year 2000. A couple of my friends had some of them, and I thought they were so cool. At the time, it was the closest thing you can get to a James Hetfield guitar because they weren't making the 1984 Epiphone Explorers like these, and the LTDs were really hard to find. And of course, the ESPs were super expensive. After searching through the seller's whole store, I found the Rhoads that I really liked, I found that Explorer that I really liked, and I even found a set of tuners and a bridge that'll work perfect for the Explorer. So I bundled up all those items, I sent him an offer, he came back at me with a counter, and I accepted it. Most of the time when I get a new guitar in, I'll throw it up on my Instagram stories and let my audience see it. I'll tell them it's available if anybody wants me to customize this for you, reserve it now, and it's yours. Right when I posted this one up on my Instagram story, someone messaged me and wanted to buy it. He wanted me to build him a Hetfield Rusty, which is a guitar James Hetfield used during the St. Anger era. James Hetfield's Rusty Explorer is a Gibson Explorer with a mahogany body and neck, matte black finish, and a rusted out pickguard. It's got EMG 81 and 60 pickups and a tune-o-matic bridge. So we're gonna do pretty much the exact same thing, but on the Epiphone Gothic. Hey guys, I want to take a moment real quick to tell you about my friends at Iron Age Guitar Accessories. They make awesome stuff, knobs, guitar picks, and my favorite, kill switches. I know a lot of you guys are like, this guy talks about kill switches on every episode, but it's because I put a kill switch on basically every guitar I have. I love kill switches because as a lead guitarist, I'm always looking for a new way to add something special to my playing. You know, we have harmonics and chorus and flanger and all these cool different effects and techniques we can use. But the kill switch is one not a lot of people use, and it adds a really cool percussive dynamic to your playing. Let me show you. Now go get yourself a kill switch, enter GG-10 at checkout, and you get 10% off. Links down in the description below.
The Gothic Explorer has arrived and it's in my hands. Everything looks good on it, so at the monthly production meeting I have with my assistant Ryan, I'm going to show it to him and give him the game plan.
That's a cool Explorer.
So this is the Epiphone Gothic Explorer. This guitar is going to Ethan. We're going to do a replica of James Hetfield's Rusty Explorer. That's what it's going to look like.
Oh, wow.
We're going to actually remove the pickguard and the switch that's up here. We're going to relocate down here. There's a little channel that runs across here for the wiring for the switch, and we don't need to fill it in because we're going to put another pickguard on it. That's where I'll need you to come into play and build me, you know, a nice rusty pickguard like that.
Awesome.
Might even throw a clear coat over the rust afterwards because I wouldn't want to have a guitar with like a really rough surface. I feel like that would be abrasive when you're playing. Your finger hits it, it just would be annoying.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll throw a really thick clear coat over that. Yeah, that rusty pickguard, EMGs.
That's going to be sweet.
Yeah, this is going to be a really cool one.
Now that the game plan's in place, Ryan will disassemble the guitar and bring it outside and sand it down. Whenever we disassemble a guitar, we always take all the parts and put them into one bag and label it with the guitar's name. Even the parts that we know aren't going to go back on the guitar, we always put into the bag just for reference and just in case we need to check something on it later. Now that this guitar is completely stripped down, we can bring it outside to the sanding area. It's important to have multiple workspaces set up because where you sand a guitar is not where you want to assemble a guitar. And where you do your final polishing is not where you want to do your wiring. Where you sand a guitar leaves all kinds of particles and dust around, and where you polish a guitar, you have a ton of residue. Plus, when it comes to assembly and wiring, you have a completely set of different tools, depending on what job you're doing. So it's nice to have your tools where you need them for specific jobs. For example, all your files and all your fretwork stuff over on one table, Then you can have all your wire, your heat shrink, and your soldering tools over on another table. Most of the time when we refinish a guitar here, we just sand it down using 600 grit sandpaper and a palm sander like shown here. You don't need to bring it down to bare wood, and you kind of don't want to, because when you bring it down to bare wood, you're going to need to reprime it and then repaint it. Paint doesn't like to stick to wood. Paint likes to stick to primer or paint that's been scuffed up. The reason you want to scuff it up is so that it'll create a mechanical bond, because paint doesn't like to stick to a smooth surface. If you just try to paint over a finished guitar, the paint's going to scratch right off. But if you scuff it up with 600 grit sandpaper, it's going to create a surface that paint's going to really love to stick to. That is, as long as the original paint was adhered to the guitar well. If the original paint is flaking or chipping off, the new paint will go right over it and stick to it, but underneath, the old paint's just going to flake right off, taking the new paint with it. I filled a couple chips and dings in the guitar, and then brought it into the paint booth. I laid down 3 coats of matte black, and then 3 coats of matte clear. Even though it's a matte paint job, you still need a clear coat on it. Paint is made of mostly pigment, whereas a clear coat is made specifically to protect a finish. You'll notice when you buy clear coat, there's different sheens. You could buy high gloss, semi-gloss, or even a matte clear coat. This paint job turned out killer, so let's go check in on Ryan and see how that pickguard is coming along. For Rusty's pickguard, we're using 1/8" steel. Ryan traced around the old pickguard, using it as a template for the new pickguard we're making. Then he clamped a straight edge to it and used a die grinder to cut it out. Now that he's got the basic shape cut out, he'll bring it over to his belt sander. Here he refined the shape and started to break down some of the edges. Next, to really soften the edges, he got out his file and cleaned everything up. He does everything old school like a true craftsman. That's why I love this guy's work. When he finished it all up, he handed it back to me, and I tried a few different methods to rust the pickguard. The first method I tried was the natural way, spraying it with water and leaving it outside for a couple days. I didn't really love the results of this method. It was really uneven, and the coloring wasn't very even either. So I sanded it back down for attempt number 2, dabbing it with a sponge and paint, which was a complete fail. So I sanded that off, and attempt number 3 was to blend some spray paint back and forth using black and then some copper colors. Again, this was an absolute fail, so I sanded that off too. For my next attempt, I went to YouTube to see if anyone had any expertise on how to rust things up quickly. And I found a great video by Mr. DIY Dork, who teaches you how to make a solution he calls Rusty 3000. I cut his measurements in half, so what I used was 8 ounces of hydrogen peroxide, 1 ounce of white vinegar, and a 1/4 tablespoon of salt. I mixed all that together in a spray bottle and labeled it Rusty 3000, just like Mr. DIY Dork does. I'll link to his original video down in the description below. Always remember to label your bottles. Over time in your shop, you're going to end up with a lot of different squirt bottles with all kinds of solutions in them, and you always want to make sure that everybody knows what's inside them. Here I'm using a squirt bottle with pure vinegar in it. That's going to prep the surface and also clean everything really good. I sprayed down the pickguard 3 times about 5 minutes apart to prep it. Then I sprayed it down with the Rusty 3000, and within seconds, the rust started to show up. I left it to do its thing for about an hour, and all the solvents kind of dried off it, and this is what we ended up with. Really uniform, awesome red, rusty color. It got kind of thick in a couple spots, which looks pretty cool, and it added a little texture to it. But I touched it in a couple spots, and it was kind of loose on top. If I were to wipe it down, it would have removed a lot of the rust, because it's not a true rust, it's just right on the surface. So I sprayed a few coats of lacquer clear coat onto it, and it came out really good. It felt really durable and nice, but pretty uneven. So to give it a little more leveling, I gave it some sanding, just like I would do after spraying clear coat on the guitar body. I didn't go as heavy with the sanding, because with a guitar you want a real mirror-like finish, and with this, I thought it was cool that it had a little bit of the rust texture to it, but without having the weird raw feeling of rust. Then I gave it a nice polishing using Meguiar's 105 and 205 combo. This removed the scratches left by the sandpaper and left a nice shine to it. You can see how rough the texture is down here on the bottom, which I haven't leveled yet, versus up here where I've leveled and polished. There's still some texture, but it's not as abrasive as down here. It's more like a smooth rock finish now.
Do you want to win one of the guitars I built on the show? Every month I'm giving away another one of the custom guitars I built on this show. The only surefire way to be entered into this raffle is to sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. Every month I download the list of patrons and do a random number drawing to give away one of the awesome guitars I built here on the show. Last month, Robert won the White Reaper, this insane 1985 Ibanez Proline 1660V. And this month I'm going to be giving away this totally radical 1994 Jackson Rhoads concept. This guitar features black chrome EMG 5766 pickups, matching locking Goto tuners, a custom clear pickguard, and a purple Tessie kill switch. Not to mention the totally insane purple and teal paint job on it. And next month I'm going to be raffling off a totally insane Jackson Kelly. So for your chance to win and be entered automatically into a raffle every single month to win one of these guitars, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. The links are in the description below. Now that the pickguard is complete, it's time to fit it on the guitar and see how it looks. The holes line up perfect, and man, that looks insane. Now I'll start wiring up, assembling, and working on the fretboard of the guitar. The fretboard's pretty dry, and the frets look pretty dirty, so I'm going to use this fret guard and just go down the fretboard, using some steel wool to clean off the frets. These frets were still in great shape, and after being cleaned, they look beautiful. Nice and shiny. Now the fretboard definitely needs some oil, so I put some lemon oil on it and let that soak in for a couple hours, and then just wiped off the excess. Electronics wise on this guitar, we're going to be going with the EMG 8160 set, which is the classic James Hetfield pickups. Shown here is the EMG wiring kit with the potentiometers, the output jack, and the wiring bus. First things first, before mounting the pickups, you want to run the cables for the pickups, which are going to go underneath the pickups and through the cavities of the guitar. Earlier, when Ryan and I were breaking down this guitar, I mentioned that underneath the pickguard is a channel. Originally, this channel was put there so you could run the cables for the pickup selector switch, which is normally mounted to the pickguard. But we moved the selector switch down to control position 1. So now I'm going to use this channel here to run the wires for the battery that's going to power the EMG pickups. I put some foam down beneath the wires and above the wires so that the wires aren't going to move around and hit on the inside of the guitar. I ran the foam up and down the length of the control cavity, then mounted the pickguard and mounted the pickups. Now I turn my attention to the headstock for a moment to mount the tuners and the truss rod cover. I'll probably remove the truss rod cover to make an adjustment when I set the guitar up, but for now I want to see what it's going to look like, and man, this looks killer. There's something about matte black with gloss black that just looks so good together. Then I strung it up with some 1046 regular slinkies by Ernie Ball and intonated the guitar. Now cosmetically, it's basically complete. Look at this thing, this is beautiful. Going into this, I wasn't a giant Rusty fan, but now after seeing it in person, this thing is just stunning. It's definitely a guitar I would love to have in my collection. The final step for this thing is just to finish wiring it up. EMG makes it really easy because they come with a wiring bus that everything plugs into, and it's real simple. It's basically a solderless system. I had to solder a little bit for my selector switch, but it was only 4 solder joints, and you could even buy a really cheap soldering iron online and do those 4 points yourself. All in all, I highly recommend if anybody's looking for a real easy mod and pickup upgrade to check out EMG because they come with a real easy to use system. As you can see in the control cavity, there really isn't any extra space, so I'm lucky that I had the space under the pickguard to use for the 9-volt battery. Alright, behold, Rusty. This thing turned out awesome. I would love to keep it, but I can't. This is for Ethan. The matte black with the rusty pickguard just looks insane. I love it. This guitar was from the St. Anger era of Metallica, but I think it fits all the eras of Metallica, and now it's time to plug it in and see how it sounds. This thing's a beast. It definitely nails that James Hetfield tone. Explorers with their giant mahogany bodies, especially when paired with EMGs, just create monster tone. This episode of Trash to Thrash is sponsored by SoCal Pedal Boards.
I love SoCal pedal boards. I've been using them for years. Actually, SoCal pedal boards was one of my first partnerships when I started Guitar Guts, and they've been sending me pedal boards that I've been using for years. I love them. The quality is excellent. They're hand-built pedal boards made out of wood. He's got a lot of great features like rubber feet, a built-in handle, holes in the side for routing your cables. So go check out SoCal pedal boards. I'll put the links down in the description below. Great company. Everything's hand-built right out of Southern California, real close to where I'm located. All right, so what'd you guys think of Rusty? I love the way it turned out. Leave your comments down below. Let me know how you guys liked Rusty. And let me know in the comments, what's your favorite Metallica album? I'm a huge Metallica fan. I'm not a huge fan of Saint Anger, to be honest. I don't really ever listen to it, but I love Metallica. They're one of the reasons I started playing guitar in the first place. I love everything from Kill 'Em All, Load, Reload, Black Album, of course all the Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, and Justice for All. But I love it all, so leave your comments down below. I'm curious to know what your guys' favorite Metallica album is. Thanks so much to my sponsors of this episode as well, SoCal Pedal Boards and Iron Age Guitar Accessories. I have their information down in the description below and links to their websites. Do you guys want your guitar customized by me, or do you want to order a custom guitar through me? If you do, my information is down in the description below, mark@guitarguts.com. You can send me an email and we'll talk about a custom guitar for you. Also follow me on Instagram @GuitarGuts if you want more content from me. And be sure to tune in next week because I'm going to start working on that Jackson Rhoads that I bought at the beginning of this episode. And it's going to be a tribute to Alexi Laiho. So be sure to come back next Thursday, same time and place on this channel. And also next Sunday, I do another guitar show on this channel every Sunday called the Sunday Morning Shred, where I answer your guys' questions and play videos of your guys' customized guitars. I go over old guitar magazines. I do a lot of really fun guitar-related stuff over there. Every Sunday, right when you wake up, it's already there waiting for you. You grab your cup of coffee and come watch. So if you have any questions you want answered, leave them in the comments below, and I'll come gather up all the questions from the comments and answer them over on the Sunday Morning Shred. If you want to show off your custom guitar on that show or your modified guitar, make a video a couple minutes long of you showing the guitar. Tell me the story about it. Tell me how you got it, what inspired this guitar, and then send it to me, mark@guitarguts.com, and I'll play the guitar on the show. I love playing your guys' guitar videos on there and showing people your guys' creations, so send them on in to me. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Remember to go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. There's a link down below, and you'll be automatically entered into a monthly raffle to win one of the custom guitars that I built on this show. Also go to guitarguts.com to get your Guitar Guts Kill Boost pedal, the Guitar Guts Kill Switch, and remember you can find this show at guitarguts.tv. Go tell your friends about it, help spread the word. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Rock on, my friends. Alexi Laiho. He's the frontman of Children of Bodom. He's one of the most technically sound shredders of our time, and he was always playing the coolest signature guitar models. Today, I'm going to be building a tribute to Alexi's Wildchild Rhoads. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified every time I post a new video. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. This season, I'll be rebuilding guitars sent in by fans of the show. I'll be rebuilding 14 guitars over 14 weeks, each with a unique and interesting backstory. I'll be refinishing, refretting, rewiring, whatever it takes to make these things into the guitars of their dreams. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host, Mark Murray. Last week I started the show by showing you how I find new guitars to work on, and I went on the hunt for a Jackson Rhoads for my customer Marcel. For this project, the guitar has to have some specific key features. He said he wants the guitar to have a Floyd Rose bridge and have the electronics routed through the back of the guitar so there's no pickguard on the front. He also said that he'd love it to have 24 frets, shark fin inlays, and if he could, set neck or neck through construction, but if all other requirements are met, he'll take a bolt-on. I knew there was a few different Rhoads models that I could make work for this project, but what I found was perfect. It's a Jackson RRXMG. It comes with a basswood body, a maple neck, rosewood fretboard. It's a 24 fret guitar with pearloid shark fin inlays, neck through construction, and rear routing, which means it covers all the requirements for my customer Marcel. The guitar also comes with a set of EMG 81 and 85 pickups, a Floyd Rose Special, and a compound radius fretboard.
The plan with this guitar is to build a tribute to Alexi Laiho's Wildchild guitar. The first thing we're going to need to do to convert this RRXMG into a Wildchild is going to be to fill the neck pickup in. Alexi only used one pickup in the bridge. For this build, we're going to keep the EMG 81 in the bridge. The next thing we're going to do is fill in all the controls. Since it has one pickup, it doesn't need a selector switch anymore, and we're going to simplify the controls with just a single volume, placed in a better position between the first and the second knobs. With the body ready for paint, we're going to bring it over to the paint booth and add yellow bevels. We'll actually be repainting the black too. After that, the guitar is going to get reassembled with a gold Goto 1996 T floating tremolo. Goto makes great guitar parts, they're made in Japan, and they're excellent quality. This is going to be a huge upgrade from the Floyd Rose Special. Then we'll finish it off with a gold knob to control the master volume. This is going to be an awesome transformation.
Alexi started Children of Bodom in 1997 and they sold over 2 million records worldwide. They released 10 studio albums, a couple live albums, and a couple EPs. Alexi also released about 15 other albums with his side projects and other bands, plus he did guest spots on a ton of other people's albums. If you're wondering what Children of Bodom means, it's a reference to 3 teenagers who were murdered at Lake Bodom in Finland in 1960. They are the Children of Bodom.
On that incredibly dark note, let's get into the build. Of course, we always start every build by disassembling the guitar, bagging up the parts, and then bringing it outside to sand it down. My shop assistant Ryan helps me with these steps. Since the debut of Trash to Thrash, my workload has increased so much that I had to hire extra help. Ryan does excellent work, and he's the first member of the team I hope to assemble of guitar building masters. Now the guitar is sanded and it's ready for some Bondo and body filler. Pretty much every used Jackson Rhoads you buy is going to have chipped up corners like this, so we'll be repairing that and filling in the controls and the neck pickup cavity. For the controls, I'm just filling them using wooden dowels. It's a 3/8 inch dowel, which is the size the guitar was drilled out to. I brushed some glue onto the dowels, gently tapped them into place, and then put some Bondo over them so I could sand it level so there'd be no sign of the old holes. Since this guitar's only going to have one pickup, I filled in the pickup selector switch hole and then repaired this chipped corner. Like I said, all the used Rhoads you're going to buy pretty much have these chipped corners, and this one's not so bad. I've done some that were way worse. On a Rhoads, they can be a little tricky to sand because of the beveled edges, but it's not so bad once you've done it a couple times. Next, I'll be filling in the neck pickup cavity using this piece of hardwood that I cut out. I traced the neck pickup cavity hole, so it should fit in there real nice. I dumped a bunch of glue in, spread it around with the brush, and I even brushed it onto the back of the piece of wood to fill in the grain and really make sure both sides are fully covered in glue. Then I pressed in the piece. So now everything's filled in except for the first volume control. I actually went back later and filled that one in. We're going to reposition it about halfway between where control 1 and 2 were. Then I let the body sit for about a week so the filler could fully cure, and then we're going to sand it. I could still see a little remnants of where the neck pickup was, so I added a little more Bondo and repeated the process, sanded it level again. Then I brought it in the paint booth and put the first coat of paint on it, some yellow.
The Alexi Rhoads is looking awesome so far. The yellow turned out super vibrant and looks just like the original Wildchild. Next up, we'll be taping off the beveled edges, then spraying it black. So it's going to be black with the yellow beveled edges.
I've done a lot of different finishes on guitars that use masking tape to create patterns, like the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstrats and the different Tiger Rhoads that I've built over the years. But to be honest, even though this seems like a pretty simple masking job, it was pretty difficult to get the lines perfectly straight and placed perfectly on the bevels. I usually use either Scotch, 3M, or frog tape for my tape stripes, but no tape is perfect. You always get a little bit of bleed through somewhere on the guitar. If you guys out there have experience painting and using masking tape, let me know down in the comments what fine line tape do you guys like using. Alright, we're back in the paint booth now, and we're adding some black to this guitar. There's something about black and yellow guitars I really love. I don't know if it's just because of the EVH Bumblebee or because these colors just go so well together, but out of all of Alexi Laiho's guitars, the Wildchild is my favorite color combination. Alexi had quite a few different signature and custom shop guitars that he would play. Some were Rhoads shaped and some were a more modern flying V shape. He had some with painted bevels and some with pinstriping. Over the years he worked with Jackson, ESP and LTD, and Edwards.
I'm a collector of old guitar magazines, and to me, he was grossly underrated and undermentioned. When you look through the old guitar magazines, he hardly ever comes up. He was an amazing composer, guitarist, and frontman, and a lot of guitarists don't even know who he is. Hey, I'll admit it, I was late to learning about Children of Bodom's music. When I was younger, the synthesizers and keyboards kind of threw me off, but over the last few years, I've learned to really love it. The speed, the power, the technical ability of the whole band is exactly what I look for in a metal band. Looking through some of my old guitar magazines, I found some interesting articles featuring Children of Bodom and Alexi. In one of the articles, he talks about when he was using Jackson Rhoads, he was using Jackson passive pickups with a preamp switch that would just turn it on and off, but it wasn't adjustable. Then when he started working with ESP and EMG designed him a signature pickup that came with the preamp. It was still a passive pickup, but this time it had an adjustable preamp, which he liked better. He also talked about how later in his career he added a lot of mids to his tone, and it just added a lot of dimension to his guitar tone. Another one of the articles, titled Night of the Living Shred. The zombie apocalypse is upon us. What do you grab as you run out the door and head for the hills? A host of your favorite guitarists give us their answers. And then a bunch of guitarists, including Alexi, answer that question. Alexi said, my signature ESP guitar and a bottle of whiskey, but I'm not supposed to drink whiskey anymore. Shit, I guess I'd grab a case of beer then. And in another article, in this issue of Guitar World with the 100 greatest Metallica songs, Alexi was asked what his favorite 3 Kirk Hammett solos are. Number 1, he said, Welcome Home Sanitarium from Master of Puppets. I love the leads and the slow parts. The melodies are just really dark sounding and catchy. They make the song even better. Number 2, Hit the Lights from Kill 'Em All. All the leads on this song have an amazing energy with a super mean tone that tears you apart. It's just endless pentatonic madness and metal as fuck. And number 3, One from And Justice for All. The first time I heard the tapping part in the ending solo, I couldn't believe anyone can play that fast. I used to play that solo to impress girls. That move always worked. I used to play One to impress people too. What's something that you guys always play to impress people? Leave your comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys say. Hey guys, I want to take a moment real quick to tell you about my friends at Iron Age Guitar Accessories. They make awesome stuff, knobs, guitar picks, and my favorite, kill switches. I know a lot of you guys are like, this guy talks about kill switches on every episode, but it's because I put a kill switch on basically every guitar I have. I love kill switches because as a lead guitarist, I'm always looking for a new way to add something special to my playing. You know, we have harmonics and chorus and flanger and all these cool different effects and techniques we can use. But the kill switch is one not a lot of people use, and it adds a really cool percussive dynamic to your playing. Let me show you. Now go get yourself a kill switch, enter GG-10 at checkout, and you get 10% off. Links down in the description below.
Like I'd mentioned before, the tape lines weren't quite as crisp as I'd like them, so I touched them up using a little brush. I actually have a ton of experience painting all kinds of stuff over the years with a brush. Big things, little things, so this was actually pretty easy. It's the first time I've ever done it on a guitar, and it actually cleaned up the lines really nicely. I let that dry, and then I smoothed out the brush strokes with some 1000 grit sandpaper. Then it was back into the paint booth, and I threw down some clear on it. I sprayed 5 coats of 2K using Spray Max's high gloss formula. This stuff goes on super smooth and dries nice and flat, so it's going to make the level sanding and polishing a lot faster and easier. Notice when I did the clear, I only did the body. My customer Marcel wanted the neck to be extra fast, so I sanded down the neck, added a Guitar Guts logo to the back of it in gold, and then sprayed it with matte clear coat. After letting it dry, it feels super smooth and super fast. I actually really like the way it feels, and I'll be recommending this to more of my customers in the future. Next, I reassembled the headstock with gold hardware. I came up on a set of gold Jackson tuners that are brand new. They're going to drop right into this guitar, and then I'll be replacing the nut with a Floyd Rose R3 nut. This is the bridge I'll be using on this guitar. It's a Goto 1996T. It's a full floating bridge, similar to a Floyd Rose, but many would say this is better. It's made in Japan, and it's actually even a little more affordable than a Floyd Rose original too. Another really cool feature of this guitar is we'll be adding an EVH D-Tuna to the bridge. A D-Tuna is a switch that you can pull out to put the guitar in drop D and push back in to make it go back to standard tuning. Of course, you can use this with lower tunings as well. The only drawback to a D-Tuna is you need to block the bridge, meaning you won't be able to pull the whammy bar up anymore to raise the pitch. You'll still be able to go down for dive bombs, but you won't be able to raise the pitch upward, which for a lot of people is a deal breaker. But for people who use a Floyd Rose bridge and need to switch back and forth between standard and drop D, it's a no-brainer. This thing is awesome. Now that the clear coat's dried, I'll be doing some level sanding and some polishing. And look at this thing. This is why I love that brand of clear coat. Spray Max makes some excellent stuff. This thing just looks awesome. This guitar's ready for some assembly now, so we'll start with the wiring and drop in the EMG 81 pickup with a single volume knob. Alexi used a passive pickup with a preamp, but for this build, we're going with an EMG 81 instead. Alright, now the final step is to set it up with some strings, get it tuned up, and then set up the bridge and intonate it. Alright everybody, are you ready? Brace yourself for the Wildchild. What do you think? I think this thing is sick. I love the black and yellow, the bumblebee colors. I love the Rhoads body style. I really do like the EMG 81 single pickup. The simplicity with the single volume knob is awesome. If you know this show, then you know I love gold hardware, so I just love the way this thing turned out. There's something about gold hardware on a black headstock that just looks so classy. It was quite a bit of work to get it here. Filling the neck pickup, filling all the controls, getting the beveled edges right. But in the end, it was all worth it. Getting to build killer shred machines like this is what I'm all about. So, the hard work behind it was my pleasure to do. Now it's time for the final test. Let's plug it in and see how it sounds. But first...
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Do you want your guitar modified by me, or would you want me to build you a custom guitar and have it featured on the show? If so, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com. I also have that listed down in the description below. I'd be more than happy to go over some custom guitar options with you. If you have a guitar you want modified, or you don't have the guitar yet, either is totally fine. I can help you hunt for the right guitar to build up the guitar of your dreams. If you have a guitar you want me to modify, send me some pictures of it and a description of what it is and what you'd like done to it, some ideas. If you don't really know, that's totally fine. I'll help, brainstorm with you, and we'll come up with a game plan for making you a totally awesome, custom, killer axe.
This guitar plays great, it sounds great, it feels great. The RRXMG is an excellent guitar. The neck joint on it's really nice, and the neck shape is actually really cool too. It's really thin, but Jacksons have a slightly wider neck than a Gibson or a Fender. A standard nut's 1 5/8 of an inch wide, but a Jackson nut is 1 11/16 inch wide, 1/16 inch wider. It doesn't sound like a lot, but to be honest, it's quite a bit of a difference. I also really like the matte finish on the back of the neck. It's really comfortable, and when you're sliding around, it's very quick.
Alright everybody, what'd you think of the Wildchild? Insane guitar, right? Thanks so much to Marcel for making this episode possible. Thanks so much to the sponsor of this episode, Iron Age Guitar Accessories. And thanks so much to all of you guys for watching, tuning in, continuing to comment, hitting the subscribe, and telling your friends about it. I really appreciate it. If you want to buy a Guitar Guts kill switch or the Guitar Guts kill boost pedal, go to guitarguts.com and there's a link for guitars for sale. Click that and you're going to see a couple guitars and a couple pedals and kill switches and stuff like that. So all that's at guitarguts.com. And I also wanted to give a shout out to my friend Chris Brooks. He sent me this book a little while back on legato guitar technique, and it's excellent. He's got a whole line of all kinds of guitar technique books. So if you're looking for some great books on how to play guitar better, this is a non-paid sponsor. I just like Chris. He puts out awesome stuff. So check out Chris Brooks. I'll put his information down below as well. Alright guys, I'll be back on Sunday for the Sunday Morning Shred right here on the same YouTube channel. And I'll be back next Thursday with another episode of Trash to Thrash where I'll be talking about Arbor guitars. I recently rebuilt a couple Arbor Flying Vs, which are really cool, Concord style, like a Randy Rhoads Flying V. So be sure to come back next week for that. Hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you right here next week.
Rock on, my friends. Do you want to win one of the guitars I built on the show? Every month I'm giving away another one of the custom guitars I built on this show. The only surefire way to be entered into this raffle is to sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. Every month I download the list of patrons and do a random number drawing to give away one of the awesome guitars I built here on the show. Last month, Robert won the White Reaper, this insane 1985 Ibanez Proline 1660V. And this month I'm going to be giving away this totally radical 1994 Jackson Rhoads concept. This guitar features black chrome EMG 5766 pickups, matching locking Goto tuners, a custom clear pickguard, and a purple Tessie kill switch. Not to mention the totally insane purple and teal paint job on it. And next month I'm going to be raffling off a totally insane Jackson Kelly. So for your chance to win and be entered automatically into a raffle every single month to win one of these guitars, go sign up to the CEO tier of my Patreon page. The links are in the description below.
Dimebag Daryl, the 4th of July. Red, white, and blue, crackle, and splatter. Need I say more? Be sure to hit that subscribe button and crush the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old, beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello and happy Independence Day to my fellow Americans out there, or anyone else who wants to celebrate with us. Welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host, Mark Murray, and this is long overdue. Almost 60 episodes in, and we're just getting to one of the all-time greatest American guitarists, Darrell Abbott, aka Dimebag Darrell of Pantera. Today we're honoring Dimebag on this 4th of July special edition of Trash to Thrash. It's impossible to deny that Dimebag was one of the greatest American shredders. He's been voted time and time again as one of the top guitarists by Guitar World, Rolling Stone, Loudwire, Guitar Player, VH1, and so many other outlets. As far as metal goes, he wrote some of the deadliest, crushing riffs, sometimes in a slower groove, sometimes with speed and precision. He could play heavy, he could play soft, he did it all, and in my opinion, he was the tone of Pantera. As the lone guitarist of the band, he did more than he needed to hold it down. Dimebag and his brother Vinny have a similar origin story to the Van Halen brothers. Their father was involved in the music industry and bought the boys a drum set. But Vinny started getting really good at the drums and wouldn't let Dimebag play him anymore. So when he was 12 years old, Dimebag got his first electric guitar. He got so good at the guitar that he would enter local guitar contests and destroy. He would go in and win all the competitions, so eventually they asked him to start judging the competitions instead of just utterly dominating everybody. Later, as teenagers, he and Vinny joined a glam metal band in the early 80s, and Pantera was formed. He even went by the stage name Diamond Darrell back in the 80s. They eventually became the metal beasts that we know from the 90s, and he evolved like a Pokemon into his final form, Dimebag Darrell. Pantera went on to record and release 5 studio albums, and eventually they broke up. Dimebag and his brother Vinny formed a new band called Damage Plan, and they were great too. But then, tragedy struck, and some lunatic fan shot Dimebag on stage during a show and killed him. They called him a fan, but I don't understand that. Dimebag was buried with Eddie Van Halen's original Bumblebee guitar. I guess right before he was killed, he had mentioned to Eddie Van Halen that he wanted a replica of the Bumblebee, and when he was killed, Eddie donated the guitar to be buried in the casket with them, saying Dimebag was an original, and he deserves the original. A legend was taken from us way too early at the age of 38, but his legend lives on. He was a wild party animal, drinking beer, smoking weed, lighting fireworks in the middle of the night. He would have been insane to party with.
I'm actually working on a handful of Dimebag guitars right now, and a few of them are about to wrap up. So in future episodes, we'll be talking a lot more about Dimebag Darrell and Pantera. Dimebag had quite a few different signature models. Today, we'll be working on this one. It's a Washburn Dime 332. Dime played Dean MLs for years before signing a deal with Washburn. He rocked the Washburns for 10 years and then switched back to Dean. The Washburn Dime 332 is a bolt-on guitar with an alder body, a maple neck, and a 22-fret rosewood fretboard with a 24 3/4 inch scale length
and dual humbuckers.
This guitar was sent into the shop by TJ, who saw the show and he knew he wanted his guitar rebuilt and repurposed into a guitar he was inspired to play again. If you want to send your guitar into the show like TJ did, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com, and that's also down in the video description for this video and all the videos I do. When TJ wrote me, he told me,
I bought the guitar new in the early 2000s. I think it was 2002. I was completely obsessed with Pantera in my high school years. They're still a top 3 band for me. As life went along and I could afford more expensive guitars, I didn't play it for many years. Shortly before I reached out to you, I picked it back up and was really shocked at how well it felt and played. Even with its issues and being a budget model, I decided it deserved more and that I would keep it forever. The plan for this guitar will be to convert the bridge setup to something like you'd see on a Les Paul. It already has a Tune-o-matic bridge, but it's string through. We'll remove the current tailpiece and install a stop bar tailpiece. This guitar currently has individual volumes for each pickup and a master tone knob, but TJ wants a master volume for both pickups and no tone, so we'll fill the first knob hole, relocate the volume to the new Control 1 hole, and then we'll throw an LED kill switch in position 2. For the pickups, he wants the EMG Zakk Wylde set, an EMG 81 in the bridge, and an 85 in the neck. The guitar currently has some playability issues with the frets, so I'll address that, and of course we'll be putting a fresh coat of paint on it. This one's going all American, red, white, and blue, crackle and splatter, with the matched headstock and all black hardware. This is going to be a huge change. Now let's get this project rolling. The first thing when you're starting a guitar rebuild is to strip it down. Fully disassemble the guitar and organize the parts into bags to make it easier to put back together later. Some parts will be going back on the guitar, but in this case, most of them will be replaced because we're changing the hardware to black and we're upgrading all of the electronics. Next came sanding the body with 600 grit sandpaper and bondoing the small chips and dings. There wasn't anything major on this guitar, just a couple small things that I filled in.
Alright, now the Washburn Dime 332 has been disassembled, sanded, and the first round of Bondo has been put on and sanded level. It's feeling pretty good, it's looking pretty good. I feel a couple little spots here and there, but we're going to be doing more Bondo on it anyways, because the next step is going to be to fill in these holes here for mounting the tailpiece. On this guitar, I originally had a Tune-o-matic bridge with the tailpiece on it, but the customer wants the tailpiece gone, and we're going to do a Les Paul style stop bar on it. So to do that, we're just going to have to fill in all these holes here. So I'm going to cut some dowels up, glue them in, cut them flush, and then we're going to use some Bondo to level everything out and smooth it out, and then paint over it, and you'll never know that those holes were once there. As you can see, the first two went in and they look great. That one's in there.
And now we'll fill in the rest of these holes, gently tapping them in with a light hammer. The chisel blade is one of my favorite blades to insert into an X-Acto knife. Here is that dowel filling the ground hole that was drilled at an angle. And I'm just going to shave it off and cut it flush with the top of the guitar using that chisel blade.
So look at that. That actually came off so smooth, you could hardly feel it, so definitely a good cut there with a brand new blade on it. But yeah, this is all very good. Very happy with the way this is turning out.
Filling these holes on the back of the guitar, I ran into a couple other issues. If you want to see the whole surgery, you could check out the video on Guitar Guts 2. It's up right now, and I'll link it in the description here and at the end of today's video. And now the rear holes are filled. Here you can see I just applied a thin coat of Bondo over the rear holes, and now I'm going to do some Bondo on the front holes. After a little Bondo and sanding, the body's now ready for paint. I let the Bondo cure for a day, and then I came back out and sanded it all level, and now it's time to prep the headstock and the neck and get that ready for the spray booth. Now I know I told you guys this is going to be a splatter and crackle guitar, and it's going to be red, white, and blue, but I didn't tell you exactly how these colors were going to work into that scheme. So we're going to start with the navy blue, laying down a navy blue base over the body and the headstock. I did 3 heavy coats of navy blue. Next comes the crackle, white crackle on this guitar. For the crackle, I just do 1 thick coat. The crackle sort of has a mind of its own. You can't fully control it, but there are things you can do to help it do what you want it to do. Like here, you could see I'm using an air compressor with 5 to 10 psi to help the crackle dry quicker and accelerate the cracking, which helps give you a little bit bigger cracks. And over the next 15 or 20 minutes, you can see the crackle start to do its thing, and it looks really cool when you speed it up like this. But we're not done yet here. I told you this is going to be red, white, and blue, and it'll have some splatter on it. There are two different shades of red I usually use for my splatter, and in this case, TJ wanted the brighter red. You could also see I used a few different techniques to apply the splatter, like spraying the paint into a cup and throwing it on the guitar. I also used a small paintbrush to fling the paint onto the guitar. But there's even multiple techniques you can use with a brush to get the splatter on. If you dip your brush in the paint and then run your fingers across the bristles, it'll create a fine mist-like splatter. TJ told me to go heavy on the splatter, and I did. He also told me he wanted the Washburn logo over the splatter. So you can see here, I'm doing the splatter first, then I'm going to throw the logo over it, and we'll do the clear after. My go-to clear is Spray Max Clear Glamour. It's a 2K in a can, polyurethane, super high gloss, super durable, and awesome clear coat. I just love this stuff. And of course, we can't forget the headstock. Oh wait, what's that over there? Something cool over there. You could think of this as a little preview for a future episode. Most of the time when I'm spraying clear coats, there's usually more than one guitar in the booth at the same time. One on one side of the booth and another guitar on the other side of the booth. Now I did a ton of clear on this guitar. Probably 18 coats of clear total. 6 coats at a time, and then I'd let it cure for 2 weeks, sand it, and then do another session of clear, another 6 coats. So it's got a ton of clear to bury all that splatter and crackle down under the clear, and there's enough for me to start level sanding it and polishing it and buffing it out without sanding through the clear coats into the color. But you can see there's some texture left over from all this clear coat, and that's completely normal. It's called orange peel, and it's just the texture left over from the clear coat. Now I know a lot of DIY and at-home painters would be absolutely thrilled with this paint job, but we're about to make it way better by sanding it level. The first time you level sand your clear coat, you're going to feel like you're ruining all the hard work you put into this guitar. I mean, it looked pretty good before the level sanding, but it's going to look way better after. I've covered my process for sanding and buffing a guitar for a beautiful showroom finish before on other episodes of Trash to Thrash, but if you want a step-by-step tutorial on this, comment below and maybe I'll make it happen. There are a lot of ways to buff a guitar, but this is one of my favorite shop upgrades I've ever got since the paint booth itself. This is my StewMac buffer, and it's at least 4 times faster than hand buffing. They aren't cheap, they're over $1,000 for the whole setup, but if you're doing even a guitar a month, I think it's worth it. Alright, after some sanding and buffing, this headstock is starting to look awesome, so I'm almost ready to put the tuners back in, but when TJ sent this thing to me, he told me that around the 17th to 19th fret, there was some buzzing and some fret issues, so I'm going to be straightening out the neck by adjusting the truss rod, and then I'm going to try to see if there's a high spot down here, if there's a low fret, what's going on, and see what we need to do to fix it. Alright, now that we have it up on the bench here, I'm going to check out these frets here, 3 frets at a time, using this Stuart McDonald fret rocker. It has these different edges that no matter where you're at across the fretboard, these edges will span across any 3 frets. So as you move down the fretboard and the frets start getting closer together, you move from the longer edges down to the shorter sides, and you'll always have an edge here that'll fit the 3 frets you're working on. If it rocks back and forth, that means you have a high fret. If it sits evenly across them, that means your frets are nice and even. So everything down here, I was checking it out, looks pretty good. A little bit here and there of real small amounts of rocking, but nothing unusual. You'll see that once in a while. But when you get all the way up here, past the 19th fret, you get a lot of rocking here. See that? That's a lot of rocking. So if you look down the other end, the treble side, same thing, it's rocking real hard, back and forth. So the first thing I'm going to try is to gently tap it back down into place using a fretting hammer. Okay, actually it pounded down. Yeah, it's not rocking anymore. Now this fret might actually be loose, so maybe that's why it had stood up. But I'm going to put a drop of CA glue down on the end here and down on the end here. This is a water-thin glue that's going to wick underneath the fret. I taped off the fretboard because I don't want to get excess glue on the fretboard, but the glue is going to fall right into place because it's water thin and it's super glue, so it's going to dry really quick. Chances are these frets were probably never glued in the first place, but if you ever need to remove this fret, it should pull up pretty easily, either by scoring it with an X-Acto blade or by applying a little bit of heat with a soldering iron.
Hey guys, right now over at GuitarGuts.com, I have 2 guitars available for sale right now. One of them is this Guitar Guts customized Jackson RR5T that we modded by filling in the neck pickup cavity and adding a diamond-plated pickguard, tailpiece, and truss rod cover, EMG 81 pickup and an EMG PA2 preamp, a blacked out Tessie kill switch, and Cosmo Black Goto locking tuners, bridge, and knob. Oh yeah, and I refinished it in Black Stealth Crackle with a high gloss clear coat, and I left the crackle texture on so you can feel the alligator skin-like cracks. The other guitar is this stock Dean Vendetta VNF4 that I got in on a trade. It's a great affordable neck-through guitar with 22 frets, a quilted maple top, dual humbuckers, cool inlays, a binding, and a floating bridge. Go check out these guitars at GuitarGuts.com or click the link to the website in the description for this video. While you're there, you can also pick up a Guitar Guts t-shirt, a kill switch, or sticker pack.
Pro tip, when you're going to change your bridge out, drill the holes out before you paint the guitar, just in case you mess up or you accidentally chip the paint. You can prevent all these kinds of errors. I didn't do that, but I should have. It's too late to go back now though. So, this guitar was already equipped with the Tune-O-Matic bridge, but we filled in the tailpiece, so we need to add the Les Paul style stop bar. The new set we got in black is going to require me to drill out the Tune-O-Matic posts too. Thankfully, those holes were already marked. All I had to do was make them bigger, because this is the crucial dimension. Crucial dimension sounds like a killer band, but the crucial dimension is between the nut and the bridge. That's what sets your scale length of your guitar. The stop bar tailpiece is really something just to hold the end of the string in place, and it doesn't affect the scale length. Now the ultimate test, does it fit? And it doesn't seem like it does. Okay, great, it does. Whew. Fits perfect. I made a little template, traced it off one of the other guitars I had here that I was working on, of how far the Tune-O-Matic bridge should be from the tailpiece. So I'll mark the tailpiece holes now. And I always double and triple check every way possible. I line up the hardware with the holes that I have marked to make sure that it's going to visually line up. It's not way far off, and it does look perfect. Now I'll start with some 1/8 inch pilot holes. Then came the big drill bit, to drill out the big bushings for the stop bar tailpiece. And look at that. It's perfect. It actually looks super awesome on this body shape. By the way, look at that sick gloss. Now we'll drill out the kill switch hole using a Forstner drill bit. For this guitar, we're using a Tessie kill switch. Check out TessieSwitch.com. You can go get your kill switch from them, and if you use the code GuitarGuts, you'll get 15% off your kill switch order. I'll add that discount code into the description down below as well. Super clean. Oh boy, this thing is coming together. Now it's time to wire this bad boy up with the set of EMG Zach Wild pickups, the 81-85 combo. Something I really appreciate about EMG pickups is that they come with all new wiring for your whole guitar, including pots, output jack, a wiring bus, wire, everything you need. And it's mostly just plugged together. You do need to solder a couple little things for your selector switch, but overall it's a very easy system for installing pickups. A lot of the times that you refinish a guitar and add a lot of clear coat, or a finish like this with crackle, splatter, and then clear, the control cavity covers aren't going to fit quite like they did before. Oftentimes they're not going to fit back in the same hole, so I use a belt sander to take down about 1/32 or 1/16 of an inch off each side, just to get them to fit back in there. Now all we need to do is attach the neck, string it up, and do a setup, and this thing's ready. Are you ready to check this thing out? Are you ready for the reveal?
Alright, so what'd you guys think of this monster? Does it qualify as a grade A shred machine? I say yes. Let me know your thoughts on this guitar in the comments section of this video. Huge thanks to TJ for sending his guitar in for a rebuild. If you're interested in sending your guitar in for a rebuild or a refinish, and you want it featured here on Trash to Thrash, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com. I always include my email address in the video description if you need it, along with links to all my discount codes, the second YouTube channel, which I hope you subscribe to for bonus content, extra videos, behind the scenes stuff, and thanks so much to all of you for watching. Remember to grab your Guitar Guts merch, the link is in the description, and I hope you all have a safe and fun Independence Day this 4th of July. I hope you spend it with your friends and family, and a huge shout out to Dimebag Daryl. Rest in peace, brother. I'll see you all in the next video. Rock on, my friends. The Gibson Flying V. It's one of the all-time classic guitars for rock and metal. When it comes to tone and performance, it's hard to beat these workhorses. Today we're going to make a modern metal machine out of one of these old classics. You're not going to want to miss this. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and give us a like while you're here. This is Trash to Thrash.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and today we're giving another old beat up and neglected guitar a full makeover and upgrade, starting with new wiring, a new crackle paint job, and some other awesome touches. Today it's one of my all-time favorite guitars, the Gibson Flying V. The Flying V was originally designed in 1957, but we're going to upgrade this thing and make it suitable for all kinds of modern metal.
Here's the guitar. It's a 2007 Gibson Flying V faded model. It's covered in stickers, and honestly, for this style, it looks pretty cool. It has a real punk rock vibe going. But that's not how Ben, the owner of this guitar, imagined it for himself. He said to me in a message, "I bought it in 2010 as a backup for my white Gibson V. I quit my band and I never used it after that. Eventually, I thought I'd distinguish it from my other V by installing a sustainer pickup so I'd use it more. I also had the brilliant idea of painting it white myself. I sanded it down and applied some primer. I soon realized I was in over my head and gave up, so I just threw some stickers on it. The plan for this guitar will be to give it a brand new crackle paint job, red, with a black crackle coat over it. Then we'll install a new pickguard loaded with a Sustainiac pickup in the neck position and a Seymour Duncan Nazgul in the bridge. It'll also feature a Tessie kill switch with a red LED. Then we'll replace the existing hardware with new black hardware, a set of Tone Pros Tune-O-Matic and tailpiece, and some Grover tuners. We'll also do some custom red speed knobs, a black matching truss rod cover, and install a battery box in the back to make 9-volt battery changes a breeze. My assistant Ryan started this project by disassembling the guitar. The first thing will be removing the strings, hardware, and the pickguard. This one was pretty simple. The guitar's a neck through, so the neck doesn't come off. It's just a big solid beast. And the electronics are all mounted on a pickguard, so they just lifted right out. The guitar came into the shop already sanded pretty well. Some spots had been sanded to the wood and needed some grain filler though. Before you paint a guitar, you have to fill the grain in the wood. Wood is porous, and if you attempt to paint over unfilled wood grain, the paint will sink into the pores and the guitar will have an undesirable look with small pinholes in it. Grain filler is like a clear coat you can brush across the raw wood and it'll fill those pores and seal it, so the guitar can be sanded smooth and then painted. Here I'm using Solarez Grain Sealer Filler. It's a great filler that cures via UV in just minutes. So if you work outside, you can brush it on, leave it out there for 5 or 10 minutes, and it should be ready to sand. You can sand it smooth, inspect it, and see if you need to add any more in any spots, and have it all ready to go in just a few hours.
Alright, now the body for this Gibson V is starting to look nice and smooth, nice and straight. Got the grain filled, everything's sanded nice and level. and it's ready to start priming up. But as I look over the work order here, I can see that we're going to be adding a 9-volt battery box to this guitar. So we're going to be using a Goto battery box to make it real easy and fast to change the 9-volt battery. I've added Goto battery boxes to guitars before, but this time I actually made a jig so my router can glide real easily and have a real precise hole for this. So we're going to be heading outside to do that because it's a super messy job. Anytime you're using a router, pieces of wood, shavings, and wood splinters are flying all over the place. It becomes such a mess. So we're going to be going out to the front work area to do that. And Goto tries to make this easy on us. They give you this little piece of paper here, the assembly instructions, that tell you exactly how big the hole should be for this to sit down into the body. And basically that's the spot there where this battery box is going to sit. So we're going to be using this template. I'll line it up with these lines that I marked on the body. And the bit we have here loaded into the router, as you can see, has a ball bearing on it. That ball bearing is going to ride on the inside of our wooden template, and the bit's going to stick out through the bottom. So as it rides around on this inner edge, it's going to copy this shape into the body of the guitar. This is what I was talking about right here. Look at that. I'm covered in beautiful mahogany dust. And there we go. It's ready. Perfectly set in there. Now we gotta clean this gigantic mess up, and then we'll bring the guitar back into the shop, prep the fretboard by taping it off, and probably tomorrow we'll get it into the spray booth for some black primer. This guitar is just about ready to spray now, but before we head out to the spray booth, I want to go over the history of the Gibson Flying V. It's a pretty crazy story. The guitar's been discontinued multiple times, but here in 2023, 66 years after it was designed, it's as popular ever, and it's definitely one of my all-time favorite guitars. I hope you guys are enjoying this episode so far. If you dig the shirt I'm wearing, it's available now at Guitar Guts. There's a link at the top of your screen and in the description down below for them. Each sale helps support the channel, and they're super awesome.
The Gibson Flying V was designed in 1957 by Gibson's Ted McCarty as part of a futuristic line of guitars. However, due to its radical and unconventional shape, the guitar just didn't sell well. Under 100 of them were initially made and sold. They were discontinued in 1958, but in the 1960s, the Flying V started to become popular with blues and rock guitarists such as Albert King and Jimi Hendrix. In 1963, Gibson built a small run of Flying Vs using leftover parts from the initial run, and they started producing the new Flying Vs again in 1967. In the 1970s, the Flying V saw a resurgence in popularity with hard rock and heavy metal guitarists such as Michael Schenker of UFO and his brother Rudolf Schenker in the Scorpions. In the 1980s and 1990s, Gibson reissued the Flying V with slight modifications, including a more comfortable neck joint and higher output pickups. The Flying V has since become a staple in hard rock and heavy metal music and has been used by countless guitarists, including Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield of Metallica, Dave Mustaine of Megadeth, Lenny Kravitz, Neil Schon of Journey, and even the King, Eddie Van Halen. So many guitarists and guitar collectors love this guitar, and what it really comes down to is it looks awesome. It has a ton of versatility, the neck pickup sounds beautiful, the bridge pickup sounds crunchy, it plays great distortions or cleans. It's a big, solid mahogany beast and can work so well for so many rock and metal styles. It's a neck-through monster, so it has a ton of sustain and resonance, and whether you want to shred some solos or jam some heavy rhythms, it's got you covered. The V's slim neck profile and fretboard radius also make it easy to play fast and precise runs, which is essential in many metal subgenres. The guitar is also equipped with dual humbuckers that provide a thick, crunchy tone. We'll talk more about humbuckers a little bit later. Now, break time's over, let's get back to work. I just loaded the guitar into the spray booth, and it's mounted on my neck-through jig. Since the guitar needed some bodywork, I laid down a few coats of matte black primer to get this finish started. Not only does it lay a good foundation for the paint, the black primer will also let me inspect the body as a single color guitar. Inspecting a guitar with different bondoed sections and exposed wood and sealed wood sections, it makes it harder to tell if everything's perfect. Getting it all one color lets you see how flat the surface really is, and it exposes all the small defects. After letting it dry for about a week, I lightly sanded the matte black and inspected it. It looks great. Now it's ready for some color. The first color going on will be a bright apple red.
I'll do 3 coats of this red before I spray the black crackle paint on. For a step-by-step tutorial on how to spray crackle, click the link at the top of your screen now, but there will also be a link in the description. Now it's time to throw some crackle paint on. Crackle is a type of paint that creates a cracked or aged appearance on the surface. It's applied in 2 steps. The first color is applied as a base color, which will be red for us, and that will be the color of the cracks. The second color will be the crackle color, and as it dries, it'll shrink and crack, revealing the base color beneath it and leaving a very interesting appearance. This pattern turned out really cool. There are small sections and large sections of crackling, and it looks random, which I like. I let this cure for a couple weeks before spraying the clear, but now we're back in the spray booth again, and it's time to throw on some Spray Max 2K polyurethane clear gloss. I'll usually get about 6 coats out of 1 can. I usually spray 6 coats with 6 to 8 minutes in between each coat. Then I let that cure for about 2 weeks. I'll sand the guitar to start getting it flat because the crackle has a thick texture, so I'll need to spray a second can on to build up a lot of clear. I'll repeat that process with a third can, and that should be enough clear to level sand and buff it all out to get a beautiful mirror-like finish. There are so many legendary guitarists who played Gibson Flying Vs, but these are the top 5 as voted by you guys. I did an Instagram poll asking you all, who's your favorite Gibson Flying V player? And here are the results. James Hetfield, Kirk Hammett, Rob Flynn, and Dave Mustaine topped the list, taking over 50% of the votes. So then I came here to YouTube and threw up a poll for you guys, taking those top 4 results from Instagram and asking which is your favorite. With over 600 votes, James Hetfield takes it at 43%, Dave Mustaine claimed 39%, Kirk Hammett took 10%, and Rob Flynn got 8%. There were a ton of other great honorable mentions though. I even got a couple of votes, so thanks for that. Here's the original pick guard that I've removed from the guitar before. We'll be reusing some of these components, including these switches for the Sustainiac, and of course the Sustainiac pickup. When we flip it over and look at the back, we can see the wiring is kind of crazy and messy, and this is the Sustainiac driver board. So there's a lot of wires coming in and out of that. Those wires are part of the Sustainiac system with that pickup there. I'll be cleaning up this wiring and replacing the pots. Now we're going to remove all the parts from this pickguard and migrate them over to the new pickguard. The Sustainiac neck pickup that's in this guitar is really cool. It's a pickup that was designed to produce a controllable sustain, allowing for your notes to ring indefinitely without the need for any type of pedals or external effects. It's unbelievable if you've never tried to use one. It works by using a driver circuit to induce a magnetic field around the strings, creating an oscillation that's then amplified and fed back into the guitar's signal chain. So it creates like a feedback loop. The pickup system comes with a circuit board that has a couple of toggle switches built into it, and they allow you to switch between normal and harmonic sustain, and it can be used in conjunction with other effects to produce all kinds of crazy ideas. It's commonly used in metal and different type of experimental genres where sustained notes and high gain tones are often used. The mounting feet for this Sustainiac must have broken off, and it has this plastic plate on it. And I'll fix that by mounting this metal plate that's already tapped for regular pickup spacing to the bottom of it using super glue right now to let it set in place, and then I'll come back and add some epoxy. This Sustainiac pickup is a humbucker pickup, and so is the Seymour Duncan Nazgul pickup we're going to be using in the bridge. When the Flying V was initially released, humbucker pickups were a relatively new thing. The humbucker pickup was invented in 1955 by Seth Lover, an engineer working for Gibson Guitar Corporation. The humbucker pickup was designed to address the issue of 60-cycle hum that plagued the single-coil pickups used on electric guitars at the time. Basically, loud humming was coming through on the pickups. By using 2 coils with opposite polarity and wiring them in series, Lover was able to cancel out the hum and produce a cleaner, more noise-free signal. The humbucker became an instant success with guitar players and is still the most common type of pickup used in rock and metal genres. We're going to be redoing some of the holes here. This pickguard's really cool. It's just a solid black pickguard. So on that guitar, it's going to look really good. We threw a Seymour Duncan Nazgul in the bridge, and he already had the Sustainiac pickup. So that's up in the neck. You can see he's got the 2 controls here for it. And then this is just a layout of what all these control holes are going to be for. So we got the volume here, the kill switch is going to go here, the output jack there, the tone will go here, and the selector switch is going to go here. I haven't actually taken out the bridge pickup yet. So I mounted this whole monstrosity straight into this pickguard, and that's the new bridge pickup. We're going to be taking this one out, desoldering it, and then wiring this one in. And then we're also going to be switching this selector switch and putting in this black selector switch. So on the front of this thing, since it's a single ply black pickguard, that's just going to blend right in, looks super stealthy. And like I said, the pickguard's a single ply, so it's got the bevel on the edge, but it's just all black. We even made, check out this awesome truss rod cover for this guitar. It looks like kind of like the Voodoo Gibson ones from a couple years ago. This is the one from my Gibson Flying V. I have a 67 Flying V from the early 2000s. The exact same model as this guitar that I'm working on here. And we made a new truss rod for my customer Ben. That looks so cool.
We started by tracing my Gibson V truss rod cover, and my assistant Ryan made this duplicate cover in single ply black with a slightly beveled edge that matches our new pickguard. We added some countersunk holes, and it's a perfect replacement truss rod cover. Now it just needs a logo. Using my vinyl cutting machine, I made a red Gibson logo that's going to match all the red accents on this guitar. I put that on our new truss rod cover, and look at that thing.
Let's see what that's going to look like on the guitar. Dang, look at that. That looks so awesome.
Now I'll clean up the wiring on the pickguard, remove the old bridge pickup, replace the pots and selector switch, and wire in the new battery box. This is the battery box we'll be using, the Goto BB2. We need to add a hole that leads from the battery box to the control cavity to run the battery wires. Using this really long bit makes it easier to get the proper angle. Here's where it goes from the battery box, and here's where it comes through under the pickguard into the control cavity. Now I can run the wires and set the box into place.
Alright, the pickguard is looking killer. We got the knobs on there, and I just love these knobs that Ben picked out. Black and red speed knobs like that are just... I've never seen them like that, but apparently they're like the ones that are on the Voodoo series by Gibson. We got the black kill switch with the red LED, the all black switch, but then we have this output jack here. When you look at the whole pickguard, everything's got a real dark black and red theme going on, but that stands out, and I can't have that. That just is an eyesore. So I went to the internet to find some black output jacks and didn't find any. If you guys know a source for some, leave it down in the comments below. I'd love to get one, but I do have a bunch of washers and nuts for switches and pots that we're going to search through, and maybe we can find something black in these piles here that'll look good on this guitar. After a couple years of working on guitars, I often have cool parts like these on hand that are in excellent condition. There's no tool markings on there. I actually don't even remember where these came from, but they look great. So we're going to use one of these washers here, this black nut, and I bet you that's going to look way better. And although it's not all black, that looks good. This thing is now complete and ready to drop into the guitar.
This guitar has a Tessie kill switch in it, and this episode of Trash to Thrash is sponsored by Tessie. Go check out Tessie if you need a kill switch for your guitar. They have a huge variety of all different types of kill switches, and if you enter Guitar Guts at checkout, you'll get 15% off their already low prices. Now, go get yourself a Tessie kill switch. Now I'm going to do a little bit of work up here near the nut and the headstock. I started by scribing the edge of the nut to make sure that I wasn't going to chip any of the paint out around it. I just used an X-Acto knife for this. Then using a real light-duty hammer, I very gently tapped the nut out with a piece of wood. The new nut we're going to install is this black tusk nut by Graphtec. It's actually made for Gibson guitars. It's already slotted and sized to just drop right in. To get the best playability out of any guitar, you want to have a perfectly set up nut and a properly intonated bridge, and your truss rod must be in check. It was supposed to just drop right in, but it didn't quite fit. As with just about any nut, you'll need to do some fine adjustments. I used the belt sander to make the nut just a little more narrow at the foot.
I still got to work on the neck a little bit more, get it a little hydrated, throw some oil on it, polish the frets, get that going and looking beautiful, but I'm still waiting on some parts, so I've got a few days until the rest of the parts are coming. Now I just applied the third or fourth treatment of lemon oil to this fretboard. It's still got that real shiny look because I just applied it, but it is sucking up the lemon oil. So this thing is going to be nice and hydrated. We'll be able to get the frets polished next.
Now here I've glued the nut in place, and you can see it's being held on with a clamp as it dries. My method for polishing the frets involves using a fret guard and a Dremel with some metal polish and cleaning up those frets and making them look beautiful. I have a full tutorial on my YouTube channel that shows exactly how I do this, and I'll link it right here and down in the description below. If you want to learn how to polish your frets super shiny in about 15 minutes or less, then you're going to want to watch this video, but you do need a Dremel to make it happen. You know, a question I get a lot from people is, why don't you darken more fretboards? And this is why. I think rosewood fretboards, when they're properly oiled, are gorgeous. Look at the character in that wood grain, and that color is just awesome. For the hardware on this guitar, we're going to be using this Tone Pros Tune-O-Matic and tailpiece along with these Grover tuners. Doesn't get much better than this. Now it's time to drop on the pick guard, string it up and get it set up, but I want to jump ahead on this one straight to the reveal. Sometimes the final assembly and the setup kind of spoil the big reveal, so are you ready to see this thing? Be sure to let me know your reaction in the comments section and hit that like button right now. Here it is. Alright, so what'd you guys think of this beast? Let me know down in the comment section what you thought about this thing. I'm a huge fan of how it turned out. I think Ben has some great taste. Ben actually wrote me a message after receiving the guitar, and he told me a little bit more about himself. He said, "I'm moving abroad this year and had to decide which guitars to keep and which to sell before leaving. I figured I wouldn't have been able to sell it in its previous condition anyway, so I decided to have you restore it to something more useful. I actually found your channel on YouTube right around then. Perfect timing. I was also graduating at the time, so I could justify the purchase as a graduation present to myself." I like the way you think, Ben. I'm a software engineer now and only have time for music as a hobby these days, but I'm very happy with the results, and it's coming to Japan with me. I love to hear that. Another guitar out the door. This one's going over to Japan. One of the few that have left the United States. I think that's so cool wherever they go, so I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Hit that like button. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of this thing, and rock on, my friends. On the next episode of Trash to Thrash, I'm recreating the ultimate in wild-looking Jacksons, the Kelly Star, and we decked it out. I'm honestly jealous of this build. It's got an LED kill switch, EMG pickup, and even my favorite paint job, alien blood splatter. Be sure to tune in and check it out. Until then, enjoy one of these other episodes of Trash to Thrash, and be sure to be subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. Randy Rhoads is widely recognized as being one of the top influential guitar players of all time. The way he infused classical theory into heavy metal changed everything for heavy metal lead guitarists. Tragically, he was taken from us at the age of 25 years old when he was aboard a plane that crashed during an Ozzy Osbourne tour in 1982. But his legacy lives on. He wrote some of the most iconic heavy metal riffs of all time, and his signature guitar, the Jackson Rhoads Flying V, became an extremely popular model because of its pointy and distinct shape. I had heard songs like Crazy Train and Diary of a Madman for my whole life, but it wasn't until I saw Kirk Hammett of Metallica playing a black Jackson Rhoads when I knew I had to have one. I got my first Jackson Rhoads when I was about 16 years old and I was hooked. Since then I've owned a bunch of them, and I've rebuilt a bunch of them. This here is my original Rhoads body from when I was 16 years old. I used to play this guitar up on stage when I was a teenager in my band Luck Down. But now I've kind of outgrown the guitar. I've got a bunch of other nicer Rhoads, and this one has been so beat up. It's a 1994 Jackson Concept Series, a JRR 94. And it's an amazing guitar, but it's time for me to give it some new life and pass it on to somebody new. I've actually picked up a couple other Rhoads recently, and all three of them are going to get a makeover at the same time.
Randy Rhoads had a really cool guitar collection. He was known for playing a Gibson Les Paul Custom, his traditionally shaped but really cool polka dot finished Flying V, and then eventually he started working with Grover Jackson. The first Jackson guitar ever created was a collaboration between Randy Rhoads and Grover Jackson, where they literally sat down and sketched the guitar onto a napkin. What they came up with was the Jackson Concord, and it's the Flying V that Randy is most commonly known and seen with. But shortly after getting it, Randy came up with some design changes, and they came up with the new Randy Rhoads Jackson Flying V. It featured longer, sharper horns and a more vicious look to it.
Sadly, Randy Rhoads passed away before the production models were completed. But Randy Rhoads' family worked with Grover Jackson to continue with production and releasing them to the public. These are the next three guitars I'll be rebuilding. 3 different Rhoads. This one here is a 1992 Jackson Professional Series EX model. This one here is a 1994 Jackson Rhoads Concept JRR 94 model. The Concept series were great guitars and they only made them for about a year. I've done quite a few rebuilds on them. And I actually have another one here in blue that'll be part of the lineup of guitars that I'm going to be working on next. All 3 of these guitars need quite a bit of work. They're all from the 1990s, but they're great guitars, so they're perfect candidates for what I like to do. I built other 94 Jackson Rhoads Concepts before, but we'll get back to this later and I'll tell you how I did these 2 paint jobs. These 3 Rhoads are going to keep me busy for quite a bit of time, so it's time to get started on them. The first one I'm going to start on is this 92 Rhoads EX Professional. The necks they used to put on these guitars were just amazing. Great maple necks, real hardwood. This one has a few features that drew me in right away, one of them being the floating bridge on it. I'm a sucker for a killer shred machine with a floating Floyd Rose style bridge. Another really interesting feature on this one is the blade pickup selector switch. Normally you find these on like a Strat style guitar, and most Jackson Rhoads have a Les Paul style pickup selector switch. Another thing I really like about this model is there's no pick guard on it. So when I repaint this guitar, the whole surface of the guitar is going to be painted instead of having some type of pick guard covering some of it up. Alright, so the plan with this one is going to be to start off by painting it satin white. Ever since I painted the Alien Blood Haxon, there's something about satin and matte colors that I'm just in love with. Next up, it's going to be some new pickups. A set of EMG 81 and 85 pickups, also in white with matching pickup rings. This thing's already looking insane. But to make it even more insane, blood splatter. Gonna go with the crimson red blood splatter on this one. And I'm gonna mount the pickups before I do the splatter, so the pickups are gonna have the splatter on them too. And then we're gonna top it off with an Iron Age kill switch, black with a red LED. I got a feeling this is one of those guitars I'm gonna build and it's gonna be tough to sell because I'm gonna wanna keep it. I'm gonna start working on this one at the same time. This one's gonna be even crazier, so I don't wanna reveal everything yet, but a hint is look in the background. It's gonna get a paint job very similar to that. Alright, enough talking, let's get to work. The first step, as always, is to strip the guitar down, sand it, and then Bondo it up. Bondo's a 2-part filling compound that you mix together and apply with a putty knife to fill in all the chips and dings these guitars have acquired over the years. These guitars basically look like the surface of the moon with all the craters and dents in them. The next step is to throw down a base coat of primer, and once you have a base coat on there, you can really see every little imperfection. So then I'll go back, use a little more Bondo, and sand everything perfect. Remember, These Jacksons are 1992 and 1994 models, so they're between 29 and 31 years old. That's almost as old as me. Maybe that's why I appreciate these 80s and 90s guitars so much. Now both guitars are resprayed and looking clean. It took a lot of work to fix the chipped corners on these ones. The pointy ends on Rhoads guitars really take a beating sometimes. These guitars also have bevels around all the edges, which, same thing with those. To get those angles to look right, to sand them perfect, bond to them, and resand them is a real challenge. Here are the pickup rings after spraying them. They look amazing. These can be a bit of a challenge to get right because they're made of such slick plastic material that you really have to scuff them up with some sandpaper to get the paint to adhere to them. The pickups turned out amazing too. You can buy EMGs in white, but I painted the pickups and the pickup rings the exact same shade of white so that they're going to match perfectly. The pickups already had some texture to the top of them, but the sides were really slick. So regardless of the texture or not, I still gave them a light sanding just to make sure the paint's going to adhere to them. Man, do these things look awesome mounted. The pickups are EMG 81 and 85s, which are a classic heavy metal set. I am seriously loving the way this thing looks. With the pickups mounted in the rings, and that mounted to the guitar, this thing just looks so awesome. I also drilled the hole for the kill switch, so this thing is ready for some red blood splatter.
Alright, we're just moments away from throwing the blood on this guitar. I did the headstock already and it looks awesome. The colors really look good together, but man, I get nervous doing this because this is like a make or break moment for this guitar. If the splatter comes out awesome, the guitar looks awesome. If something weird happens, the splatter doesn't look so good, it all leads up to this moment and it can go either way. It always goes good, so I'm not too worried about it. This thing looks so sharp, pure white. I mean, with these pickups on it, I always mount the pickups on so that when I throw the blood on, it's going to go across the rings, the pickups, everything. So, here we go.
My basic process for splattering a guitar is to simply spray some paint into a cup. Then I stand back a few feet and just start throwing it on there. The amount of material that you spray into the cup and the distance you stand from the guitar are going to affect the way that the splatter looks. Even the amount of force that you use to throw it on the guitar is going to change the way that it hits the guitar and splatters. Throwing it from different directions is also going to make it look different. So there really is a lot of technique to it once you've done it a few times. The thickness of the material itself and even the temperature of the paint are additional variables when you're throwing splatter. But look at this thing. This one turned out excellent. Pretty much exactly what I was going for.
Man, like I said, doing the blood splatters are make or break moment for these things. It makes me super nervous because you could just ruin the finish so easily, but I love this one. This one turned out so awesome. Nice heavy splatter over here, little light splatter over here. The contrast of the colors is good. A little bit came up on the sides here. We got a little drippage and a little splatter on the bottom. I mean, this thing, I like it. So, a successful splatter.
After finishing up the body and painting the headstock, it's time to put a brand new Jackson logo on there. A nice, clean white headstock with a bold black Jackson logo. It's also going to get some black tuners. It's got the black truss rod cover. So there's going to be some nice black accents on this headstock. But of course, to match the body, it's going to need some blood splatter. I really love the way this guitar is turning out. The blood splatter looks so good, and I love the way it goes over the Jackson logo there. Looks awesome. I started wiring up the guitar and I realized there's not enough room inside the guitar for a battery, so I'm adding a Goto battery box to the back of the guitar. Normally I would do this before painting it. For this I used my trusty router, and it's actually some pretty serious guitar surgery, and it's a super big mess to do something like this. So I got the vacuum in one hand, the 1 horsepower Bosch router in the other hand, and time to be real careful and make sure to cut this hole very precise. The wires from the battery box route through a little hole that I drilled to connect the two cavities together, and it fits perfectly. The battery box can swing open, and a little door opens that you put the 9-volt battery into, and it locks back closed. And this guitar came together gorgeously. Look at that headstock with the tuners and the truss rod cover installed. I was telling you that the black accents were going to look good, but it looks even better than I expected. The painted EMG 8185 combination, the Iron Age kill switch with the red LED. I mean, this thing is just unbelievable. Certain guitars that I build, I don't mind when they don't sell right away because I get to play them, I get to look at them for a little bit, but I got a feeling this one's going to go really quick. The blood splatter on this thing just looks so awesome. It really does look like somebody cut themselves and dripped blood all over it. I mean, the white painted EMG pickups, the black Floyd Rose, the blade switch. This thing has so many cool features that you don't see on a lot of Rhoads guitars, and the lack of the pickguard really brings it together. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments what you think of this beast. Alright, now it's time to throw some alien blood on this nice flat black body. I call it alien blood because it's neon green blood splatter, and I imagine the aliens have neon green blood. After painting the alien blood Haxon with this same style paint job, I really missed those colors together, and I wanted to do another one because I love the way that one turned out. If you look in the background, you're going to see that the paint booth is starting to get quite a bit of splatter built up around. And it looks pretty good in there. So the Rhoads looks cool, but it didn't turn out quite how I was hoping. I was wanting it to look more like the original Haxon here that I did. I wanted to have more thick blood like on this one, where you can see it's cracked and coagulated, and I decided to add some more to the Rhoads.
Alright guys, well, this sucks. I did the splatter job on this Rhoads, and I do not like the way it turned out. I told you guys before that I get nervous sometimes because it's a make or break moment when you go to throw the splatter on, and I did it. It looked okay, but I thought it didn't look as good as the original alien blood that I did before, so I figured maybe we'll add a little more. The original alien blood had more blood on it, so I started adding more. It looked better, I'll give it that. Next day I looked at it again. It wasn't what I would want. I wouldn't buy it, so I figured, okay, maybe we'll add a little more on there. After throwing more and more and not liking it, scraping some off, doing it again, I finally come to the conclusion that I think it's better just to scrape it all off, sand it all down, and do it again. So it sucks to say that I'm going to be doing that to this one, but you know, I don't want to put something out there that I don't like. The whole point of doing this is I'm building guitars that I would actually want and that look awesome, and why would I put something out there that's not as good as I would hope for it to be? So, got to go scrape it and respray it, and hopefully somewhere 24 to 48 hours from now, throw some more alien blood on it and have a way sweeter guitar than this. So next time you see this thing, it should look a lot better than this.
Alright, well, they don't always go exactly as planned, but in the end, I know I'm going to get this one right. It looked great like this. I should have just left it like that. You live and you learn. Be sure to tune in next week to find out what happens with this guitar. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit that bell to be notified every week on Thursday when a new episode drops. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought about this episode. And be sure to help spread the word by telling all your friends and posting this on your social media. Word of mouth is huge with this show, and I've been seeing your guys' posts about it, and I really appreciate it. If you want your guitar featured on the show, then contact me. Information is down below. Email me, mark@guitarguts.com, or DM me on Instagram @guitarguts. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next Thursday. Rock on, my friends. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old, beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. The Randy Rhoads signature Jackson Flying V, to me, is the most wicked of all Flying V guitars. Not only is it the most vicious looking, but it set the standard for so many other companies to create their versions of it. From the moment it was introduced, it started a new trend of non-symmetrical Flying Vs. Last week I showed you 3 different Rhoads guitars I'm starting to work on. A 1994 JRR 94 concept, a 1992 EX Professional, and another 1994 JRR 94 concept. I finished up the 92 EX and it turned out awesome. I started this 94 concept Rhoads and it didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, so I ended up scraping off the alien blood splatter and sanding it back down. Well, it's ready for round 2. I'm also ready to start the other 94 concept now. This is the one that was from my personal collection, but I have a few Rhoads now and I don't really play it anymore. These 94 concepts are excellent guitars. I built other ones before too. This is one of the first 94 Jackson Rhoads concepts that I ever rebuilt. This is the Purple Tiger Rhoads. The customer wanted it purple to blue burst, which I had never done, but I had done these stripes before, and I laid down a solid clear coat over it. And this thing turned out amazing. This was one of the first guitars I ever did for another person, so letting this one go was really difficult, and wasn't really parting with many of them. Of course, I loaded it with the kill switch. The customer had seen my orange Tiger Rhoads that I did just a few months before. This finish is definitely one of my favorite finishes I've ever done on a guitar. My original inspiration for this guitar came from the early 90s ESP Kerry King Flying Vs. You almost never see these guitars around anymore. At the time I was performing live at a lot of parties, and I would build a new custom guitar every time depending on what the occasion was. 4th of July, St. Patrick's Day, and this was for a Halloween party, so naturally I went with orange and black. But I loved the red on these guitars and decided to throw red into the center of it. The first step with a finish like this is to do your base colors. You want to do your burst first so you're not adding a bunch of color over the tape. You don't want to have too much paint over the tape because then it's going to build up and get too thick, and it's going to be much more difficult to pull the tape after with clean lines. As always with a new idea, I tested it on a test guitar first. So this Strat was my test. I created these tape lines by cutting them out by hand with an X-Acto knife. Then I sprayed the whole thing black, and once I peeled the tape back, it revealed the burst below, with the black stripes on top. This time lapse is sped up to 5,000%, so this was actually about 25 minutes to take the tape off this guitar. Even in this beat up form, I still think this was a really cool guitar. Years ago, inspired by Unearth, I had written Kill and covered it in tape on the top horn. This guitar features a red EMG 81 pickup and a cheap matching kill switch in red. This guitar has a real junkyard feel to it. I mounted the 9-volt battery in the empty neck cavity. A real Eddie Van Halen kind of thing to do. Although it's beat up, this guitar still plays really good and sounded great. But I know if I go to try to sell it in this form, no one's going to buy it, so it's time to strip it down and get it ready to paint.
This here is the body of my first Rhoads I ever had. This is a guitar I used to play on stage with my band Luckdown, back 15 plus years ago in high school. It's a solid guitar, but I think it's time to give it some new life and move on. Give it to a new owner and make it really awesome.
The reason I don't play this concept too much anymore is because I recently got this guitar. This is a 2020 Jackson Rhoads RR24Q. This guitar has everything I look for in a guitar. A beautiful maple top, gold hardware, a Floyd Rose, direct mount pickups, 24 frets, and a matched headstock. I also love the bound ebony fretboard, shark fin inlays, reverse headstock, and Seymour Duncan pickups. Plus, it's purple. You can't really beat purple. This 94 concept is going to be a real interesting one. I sprayed it teal and purple. Someone had used these colors together on a mock-up I saw online, and I loved it. So I decided to try it, but with the crazy stripes like I did on the two Tiger Rhoads. When I tape up these guitars, I lay the tape down on my workbench and literally draw out the pattern by hand. Then I come back with an X-Acto knife and trace out my drawings. Then I simply apply the pattern onto the guitar and go spray it. It looks pretty cool. I really like the way that the colors kind of splattered over each other rather than having a smooth burst or fade. For the pickups, I think I'm going to go with the EMG 81X in the bridge and the EMG 60X in the neck. They're a more modern sounding pair than the classic EMG 81 and 60, and I've wanted to try them for a while. Alright, we'll get back to this one soon, but the Alien Blood Rhoads is ready for some new splatter. So here we go. This pattern looks great, so this time I'm not going to mess with it. It still doesn't look like the Alien Blood Haxon with the cracking and all, but hey, it looks great and I like it. This guitar is nearly 30 years old, so the fretboard was pretty dried out. This was a thirsty one. It took quite a bit of lemon oil to get this one right, but look how good that looks. To bring some life back into this fretboard, I use Formby's lemon oil treatment. It's important that the lemon oil you use on a guitar's fretboard doesn't contain any water or silicone, which this brand doesn't. I apply a thick bead of lemon oil down the fretboard of the guitar and then rub it in with a soft cloth. I had originally painted the black pickguard to match the body, but I felt it was too much alien blood, so I made a custom clear pickguard and bridge for this guitar. I installed a new nut and added more alien blood to the headstock and tuners. This thing's really starting to come together. The pickguards look awesome. For this guitar, I went with EMG Kirk Hammett Bone Breakers, since they have the green logos that match the paint job on the guitar. I added some green LEDs under the clear pickguard that activate when you plug the guitar in, and of course I used a black Iron Age kill switch with a green LED here. I used split loom tubing to cover up some of the wiring. Now this thing is a true beast. It turned out pretty amazing, I must say. The custom clear bridge and pickguard turned out to be an awesome feature on this guitar. The LEDs under the pickguard, the EMG bone breakers, everything came together really cool at the end of the build. The Iron Age kill switch looks so cool with the green LED, and they're so fun to use when playing that it's just a great add-on. I painted the pickups and the headstock with 2 different colors of Alien Blood Green to give them a little extra pop since I felt they blended in a little too much with the body. The split loom wiring looks really cool, kind of gives it a Back to the Future vibe, and there's something about being able to see some of the wiring and tubing through the clear pickguard that really gave this an alien spacecraft feel. Around the back it's got the Guitar Guts skull logo and a Goto 9-volt battery access door. These old Japanese Jacksons were really something special. The back of the guitar is a clean flat black, but the splatter came over the sides, which looks really awesome. Here's a little sample of how it sounds, along with its white and red counterpart from last week. They sound awesome. Thank you to Henry at Druba Geek Covers on Instagram for jamming some drums for me on this. I also build custom cases for many of my custom builds, and I paint them to match the guitars. Both sides are painted, so no matter how you have it set, you'll see the awesome alien blood. You'll always know it's your guitar when you see this case out playing gigs or whatever. Or if you have them all locked in the closet together, you don't need to put the blue tape on it and label it. 4 latches on the opening side, a nice handle there, and then also the corners. I put this really nice metal corner on. All the corners have that. Pop it up. Of course, there are the straps that hold it open so it doesn't fall all the way back. Got some padding up on the top, and it's all velvet lined inside here, so really nice custom case just made exactly for this guitar. So the guitar fits right down into there, drops in, and it doesn't move at all. Velvet and padding under and foam underneath the headstock here, a nice chunk here to really support the neck. Up on top there's a piece of foam and the guitar just sits in here floating. It's a really nice case. Here there's a storage compartment, so if you have like a strap or some strings, guitar picks, whatever else you want to store in there. Of course the case has rubber feet on the bottom, and the long hinge side also has rubber feet and matching Alien Blood hinges on it, so I thought that was kind of a cool touch. Alien Blood splatter has become one of my favorite finishes. I recently partnered up with a pedal board builder who's making me custom Guitar Guts pedal boards to sell. He sends me raw unfinished pedal boards and I put my own finishes on them, and LED lights underneath. There's a switch on the bottom that you can access from the top to turn the lights on and off. They feature rubber feet and holes on each side for the cables to route through. They also have a nice aluminum handle on top to carry it around. Okay, so I told you guys I have way too many guitars in my collection. I've been selling guitars from my personal collection, and a few more have sold. I sold my 7-string Ibanez RG7420. I have an 8-string also, and I don't really play either of them too much, so I decided I'll sell them both at some point and just get a killer 8-string. This one went to somebody in Las Vegas, Nevada. I also picked up this green Rhoads RX10D in green flame maple. I'm a sucker for green guitars, and my plan for this one was to outfit it with some chrome pickups and a kill switch and upgrade the bridge to an original Floyd Rose in chrome, but as soon as I posted it, My Instagram friend Steve Pooch bought it. So off to Massachusetts this one goes. This was the first Frankenstrat I ever built and painted. It was made from real cheap parts and the Floyd was just surface mounted. It was a guitar I made to experiment on and it served its purpose. I was asked by someone if I had a cheap display-only Frankenstrat available, so I showed him this. He loved it and bought it. So it's off to Florida for this one. Before we get out of here, I want to update you guys on the guitar I showed you a few episodes back on one of the Van Halen episodes. I repainted a 5150 replica for a customer. I never was a huge fan of the 5150 until I painted one and saw it in person. Brad reassembled it himself and sent me a video of it to share with you all. It turned out amazing. I really like it. He shimmed the neck and the nut, dropped the action down, mirror polished the frets, installed an EVH Frankenstein pickup, upgraded the Floyd with titanium hardware, noiseless springs, and a 42mm FU tone big brass block. He really decked this thing out. Great job, Brad. I love it. Thanks so much for watching this episode. Next week I'll continue on the purple and teal Rhoads and I'll start a few more awesome guitars. This Jackson Kelly and this Jackson Roswell replica. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to be notified when brand new episodes drop, hit the like button, and leave a comment down below and let me know what you're thinking of this series. I love it when you guys share the show on your social media. You guys are really helping the show grow. The more people who watch, the more of these things I'm going to keep making. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon. Rock on, my friends. EVH Stealth Stripes, Alien Blood Splatter, Fishman Pickups. I've done guitars with these features before, but I've never done one guitar with all of these features, and this one's getting a lot more than just that. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and definitely hit the bell to be notified when new videos drop. This is a Trash to Thrash mini-series. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. Hello everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and today I'm going to be rebuilding a cheap Strat knockoff and turning it into a killer grade A shred machine. We're going to be taking a bunch of my favorite features from past builds and combining them into a super Guitar Guts machine. My customer Anthony sent me his guitar for a full rebuild and upgrade, and I'm talking everything. We're going to deck this baby out. Now we'll get into the full plan for the guitar in just a minute, but first let me show you what we're working with today. This is how the guitar arrived to the shop. It definitely has an interesting finish on it from the factory. It has this blue stain over the wood, and then a black burst around it with a gloss clear coat. The burst actually cuts all the way across the forearm cut, which is kind of interesting. I've never really seen that before. It came with a single ply white pickguard and 3 single coil pickups. It also has a maple neck with a rosewood fretboard. It's definitely some type of Strat clone with 21 frets. Anthony already attempted to refinish the headstock, but decided he didn't really want to go through with the project, so he sent it in to me to refinish it all. We actually don't even know what make the guitar is. Anthony's mom had bought it for him when he was about 15 years old at a garage sale. It's a cheaper Stratocaster clone, but we're going to turn this thing into a grade A shred machine. The plan for this guitar will be to refinish it with black on black Stealth EVH stripes. I've done a number of Stealth Frankenstrats in the past, but to make this one truly unique, we're going to throw some Alien Blood Splatter on it. It's going to be insane. Then, when we rewire the guitar, we're going to replace the pickguard with a clear one that'll house 2 Fishman Classic humbuckers. I have a few other tricks up my sleeve when it comes to wiring this beast, but we'll talk about that when we get there. We're also going to make a new truss rod cover for the guitar, paint the headstock to match, and we're decking it out with hip shot locking tuners. It's getting a complete makeover and upgrade. As always, the first step with refinishing a guitar is to disassemble it and sand it down. So I handed it off to my assistant Ryan, who does that for me. When you disassemble a guitar, it's real basic. All you have to do is unscrew all of the parts and put them into a bag. But when it comes to the electronics, you need to get your soldering iron out and desolder all the wires. To get this guitar prepared for the spray booth, we filled in all the holes that held the old pickguard on. That's because we're going to be putting on a clear pickguard, and we don't want to see the old holes because most likely they're not going to line up with the new pickguard.
Then we sanded down the entire surface of the guitar, so when we go to paint it, it's going to have a rough surface to adhere to. Paint just won't stick to a slick surface like a polished paint job. But if you sand it with some 600 grit sandpaper thoroughly, then you're going to have a rough surface to create a mechanical bond between the paint and the body. To do this efficiently, we use a palm sander with 600 grit sandpaper. Since we filled in the holes for the original pickguard with Bondo, I gave the guitar a fresh coat of flat black primer. That allows us to look at the body and really assess if it had enough filler and if everything's perfectly filled in and flat. The headstock came in with some pretty deep sanding scratches on it, so we sanded it smooth and gave that a nice coat of flat black primer as well. I then let the guitar cure for about a week. I then gave it another sanding with 600 grit sandpaper to scuff up the surface once again so the new paint is going to adhere well to the body. This time though, we painted it with black gloss paint, and that's how we're going to get our gloss black stripes for the stealth Frankenstrat look. Then I shot a couple coats of clear over the black and let that cure for a week. Then I striped it up with some tape, and everywhere the tape is where the gloss black is going to show through. I sanded all the exposed areas because that's where our new paint is going to go, and to make sure that it's really going to stick to this guitar and get that mechanical bond going, we scuff up the surface of all the exposed areas before we spray it again. What do you guys think of this concept? Do you think this is too crazy? The stripes, the splatter, the clear pickguard. Do you think it's all going to work together? Or do you think this is going to be too much for one build? Leave your predictions down in the comments section. I'd love to know what you guys think going into this. Also, I want to take a minute and ask you guys to hit that like button right now. I appreciate your support here at Guitar Guts. Over at GuitarGuts.com, we got merch. Click the link in the description to go get your Guitar Guts t-shirts, baby onesies, koozies, coasters, stickers, and more. And remember, if you really want to help out, sign up to the Patreon page. It's $10 a month and you get ad-free versions of all the videos I do. You get access to the Guitar Guts Discord channel where you can chat with other builders and fans of the show. And you also get entered into the guitar raffles I do. Plus, you get weekly exclusive videos for members only. Those videos show behind the scenes content and stuff I'm currently working on. If you just want the exclusive videos, then for $5 a month you can become a YouTube member and get access to an extra video each week, including a couple mini-series where I recently built the Jackson Rhoads Alien Blood No. 2 and the OLP MM1 Quilted Stealth. Links to all this stuff is in the description down below. Now we make our return to the spray booth, and to prep the guitar to get it ready for paint, another thing I always do is wipe it down with a tack cloth. A tack cloth is a sticky cloth-like material that attracts dust and dirt and pulls anything that might be stuck on the guitar off it before we paint. The next piece of the puzzle is going to be to spray the guitar with matte black. That's going to be the top coat color, and like I said, when I pull the tape after, gloss black is going to show through and give it that stealth look. I gave it 3 coats of matte black, about 10 minutes apart from each other. When I do these stealth striped guitars, I use Rust-Oleum 2X paints. Alright, so we got this guitar disassembled, sanded, we got the old holes for the pickguard filled in, and we got the stealth stripes painted on. Next up is the alien blood splatter. So be sure to come back tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. to see part 2 in this mini-series. We're going to have new videos every day this week until this guitar is finished up. So hit that bell to be notified and you get an alert right when the videos drop. And I appreciate you guys watching. Go buy some merch, go sign up to the Patreon, show your support. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you guys tomorrow morning. Rock on, my friends. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Up on the screen right now is a link to the playlist of all the episodes of Trash to Thrash. So if you haven't seen them all yet, I strongly encourage you to go back and start from the beginning. There's been almost 50 episodes at this point, each of them with 1 or more guitar rebuilds. So go check them out if you haven't already. The Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat project. The guitar's been disassembled, sanded, holes have been filled, and the stripes are painted on. Now, it's time for some alien blood splatter. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. This is a Trash to Thrash mini-series. For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and this is part 2 of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrap mini-series. This is a multi-part series where all week long I'm going to be posting new episodes daily until this guitar is complete. In episode 1, I showed you Anthony's Stratocaster clone and we started the rebuild. This is a crazy rebuild where we are combining a bunch of things that we've done on past guitars and creating a Guitar Guts monster with all my favorite features. Think I'm going to put a kill switch in this guitar? Put your guesses down in the comments.
In part 1 of this series, we received the guitar in from my customer Anthony. Then with the help of my shop assistant Ryan, we got the guitar stripped down and sanded, we filled some holes in the body, and added the EVH Stealth stripes. The next step in this guitar's adventure here at the Guitar Guts shop is to add the alien blood splatter, so let's head out to the paint booth and murder an alien. It's been about 12 hours since I painted the matte black on this guitar, and I pulled the tape to reveal the gloss stripes underneath. It looks wicked! But this paint job still has one more step. Neon green alien blood. I used Montana Paint's fluorescent green paint for the splatter on this one. From my experiments, I've found this paint to be the brightest and best looking fluorescent green that you can get in an aerosol can. I dig the splatter pattern on this one, and of course we match the headstock. Always gotta match the headstock. Now the guitar is painted, but there's still a lot to do on this one, so we'll move on to the headstock. The holes in the back of the headstock are still there from the stock tuners. I like to fill those in using toothpicks and some wood glue. The way I do that is by pouring some wood glue onto a square of cardboard so it's easier to work with, then rolling the end of the toothpick in the glue. You really don't need that much, so you can roll the toothpick on a dry piece of cardboard after to remove the excess glue. Then you simply insert the glue-coated toothpick in the hole. You can cut off the extra piece that is protruding from the headstock and use it in the next hole. I use a set of flush-cutting wire cutters to remove the extra length of the toothpick. After filling all the holes, it looks better, but you can still see where the original tuners sat, and it doesn't look fresh, so we're going to come back to this after the glue dries. This guitar came in with the stock white nut, so we're going to be swapping that out for a beautiful new black tusk nut. To remove the original nut, I use a piece of wood that will sit right up against the old nut and a light-duty hammer and give it a couple taps. The nut will usually come out pretty easily. I'm going to wait to glue the new nut in until after I can put some test strings on the guitar. With a guitar like this, I'm not sure if the nut will sit at the right height until I can try it out and actually play something on the guitar. I'll set the new nut aside for now. After the glue holding those toothpicks had dried, I continued to work on the back of the headstock. The first thing I did was cut the toothpick pieces flush with a chisel blade on an X-Acto knife. The wire cutters I used before got it close, but it didn't get them perfectly flush. I didn't like how the back of the headstock looked. You could see imprints from the original tuner still, and since I filled all those holes, it could use some attention. I sanded the back of the whole headstock with 600 grit sandpaper. Then I wiped it down with some tung oil. That helped to unify the color tone of the back of the headstock, especially where I filled those holes. Then I brought the guitar outside and cleaned the frets with some 4/0 steel wool. I do this outside because the steel wool kind of breaks apart and sheds while you scrub with it, and I don't like that stuff in my shop. I also wear gloves with it because it can kind of stick into your skin like a metal splinter. It can also get inside your pickups if they're nearby and potentially ruin them. So I do this outside at my sanding table. I actually have an updated method on polishing frets, and I'll link that video in the description below. These frets aren't in the worst condition I've ever seen, but they definitely have quite a bit of wear on them. My customer didn't ask me to fix the frets, so I'm going to wait and see after it's assembled how it plays before suggesting we do anything about that. After cleaning the frets, I oiled the fretboard with silicone-free lemon oil. I just pour a bead down the center of the fretboard and rub it in and let it naturally air dry, which normally takes about 5 to 10 minutes. An older fretboard like this will drink it up pretty quick, so sometimes I'll apply the oil 2 or 3 times, and after about 10 minutes, if the fretboard hasn't absorbed all the oil, I'll wipe off the excess. Next, I installed the hip shot locking tuners. They were missing some of the hardware when the guitar came in, so Anthony wanted to replace the tuners completely. But I found a set of replacement washers and nuts for these exact tuners online, and it made those tuners complete. And they sparkle! Hipshot makes some excellent hardware, and these ones were in great shape, so there's no need to replace these tuners. Now I'll set the neck aside because we're done with it for now. This guitar is about ready to start assembly, so I reattached all the simple things like the bridge,
strap buttons, tremolo claw, and the springs. I set the new pickguard on, which is covered in a brown protective layer, and I started to set it in place. Now I can line up the pickguard with the neck and the bridge and make sure the gaps around them are nice and centered. I was hoping it would all just line up, but with aftermarket pickguards and that this is a Strat copy, who knows, they could have had looser tolerances. So it's possible the pickguard might need some modification to line everything up perfectly. But it all looks good, no modification needed. So I used a center punch to mark my first couple holes, then drilled them out, and I can tell it's going to look great. Then I used those holes to mount the pickguard and drilled out the remaining holes. On the pickguard, I pulled back the protective layer where the pickup screws go through and mounted the pickups. Then I remembered I should have drilled the hole for the kill switch before I mounted the pickups. It's just a little easier to work with a pickguard that doesn't have parts in it, but it can still be done. I brought it over to the drill press and enlarged the first hole, which is normally for a volume knob on a traditional Strat, but Anthony wanted his kill switch there instead, which I agree with. Another part of this rebuild Ryan helped me with was making a new truss rod cover. This wasn't part of the original plan, but after seeing the clear pickguard on the guitar, I talked it over with Anthony and he agreed we needed a new truss rod cover that was going to match this project better. I told Ryan to use his imagination and come up with something that complements the shape of the headstock. This guitar has a cool metal looking headstock shape, but the truss rod cover looked traditional and they didn't really match to me. Ryan came up with a great design. It totally matches the headstock, and since it's going to be made of clear material, it'll totally complement the pickguard too. He cut the shape out with an angle grinder and smoothed the edges with a belt sander. Then he finished it off with a drill press to make some mounting holes and even added a countersink to them. What do you guys think of the build so far? Hit that like button if you're enjoying these daily videos. Is the guitar coming together how you expected? Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this build. Tomorrow we'll get that pickguard mounted and we'll start wiring the guitar. Got a few tricks up my sleeve for that. I've got a few new things that I've never done on a build before, so be sure to come back tomorrow for part 3. Remember, if you want to support the channel, I really appreciate that. You could sign up to the Patreon page and get an extra video each week, plus ad-free versions of everything that I put up on YouTube. You get access to the Guitar Guts Discord channel, and you get automatically entered into my guitar raffles. If you just want the extra video each week, you could join my YouTube membership for $5 a month and get exclusive behind-the-scenes footage, and you could see more of what I'm currently working on. Of course, I got merch at guitarguts.com, so please go pick some of that up. I have links for all these things down in the description for this video. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. Rock on, my friends. Fishman pickups, a clear pickguard, and an Iron Age LED kill switch. It's time to wire up the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat project, and there are a couple new things I've been wanting to try on a guitar for quite some time. Today we're going to go ahead and implement them into this build. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new video drops. This is part 3 of a Trash to Thrash mini-series. For more than 20 years I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash. Hello everybody and welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and this is part 3 of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat mini-series. This is a multi-part series where all week long I'm going to be posting new episodes daily until this guitar is complete. In episodes 1 and 2, I showed you Anthony's Strat clone, and we started the rebuild. When Anthony originally reached out to me about this build, I was unsure how the stealth stripes and the alien blood splatter were going to look together. This is a crazy idea, but I like it. I had done stripes and splatter before and it worked out nicely, but this time we're kicking it up a level with a clear pickguard and a bunch of other cool details. In part 1 of this series, we received the guitar in from my customer Anthony. Then with the help of my shop assistant Ryan, we got the guitar stripped down and sanded, we filled some holes in the body, and added the EVH stealth stripes. Then in part 2, we got the alien blood splatter on the guitar. I cleaned up the back of the headstock, I polished the frets, and I oiled the fretboard. We started assembling the guitar, and now it's ready for the electronics. We're using a clear pickguard on this guitar, so the wiring needs to be immaculate because you'll be able to see it from the front of the guitar. Another thing is this guitar is going to have a 9-volt battery in it, so not only does it take up quite a bit of space inside the guitar, but I have to be able to make it look good since this guitar has the clear pickguard.
We're also going to have to find a way to mount the batteries securely. For the pickups on the guitar, we're going to go with a set of Fishman Classics. I've only done a few guitars with Fishman pickups, but they sound great every time. These are interesting pickups because they have multiple voices, meaning they give you completely different tones depending how you wire them up. I've already got the pickups mounted in the pickguard and the hole drilled out for the kill switch. Anthony wanted the kill switch in the control 1 position of the pickguard, which is where the volume normally would be on a Strat type guitar, but this is an old trick that's been around for a while, dating back to Eddie Van Halen, where you relocate the volume so it isn't quite so close to your hand when you play. The kill switch sits relatively low on the guitar compared to a volume knob, so the kill switch won't be in the way of your strumming hand like a knob would be.
Now, when you wire a pickguard, the first step is to drill out the holes necessary for the parts you're using. Then you can start mounting all your parts. It's much easier to add or enlarge holes when the pickguard is unpopulated. Right now, the kill switch hole has been added and the pickups are mounted. Now I'll add the potentiometers, or pots for short. We're using push-pull pots for this guitar. That means there's a switch attached to the back of the pot that's activated when you pull the knob up away from the body. This will allow us to control which voice of the pickup we'll be using, and the user can switch back and forth depending on what tone they want for a certain song or part of a song. Then I mounted the 3-way selector switch, so we'll have 3 options there: bridge, neck, or both. Since we're limited in space in the control cavity, I think we'll mount the battery in the middle pickup spot under the pickguard. I decided to drill a hole directly from the middle pickup cavity over to the control cavity instead of running the wires along with the pickup wires. I always like to keep my workspace clean, so I vacuumed up the mess right away. Those little shavings can scratch the guitar while you're working, especially if it gets between the guitar and your work surface. Since I don't have a ton of experience with Fishman pickups and with the multiple voicings, and there are some extra steps to the wiring, I pulled up the Fishman wiring diagram to guide me through this endeavor. Like I mentioned before, this clear pickguard is going to showcase the wiring in the inside of the guitar. To make this guitar look its best, I started routing the wires starting at the pickups, and I moved linearly from the pickups over to the control cavity. Most of the wires will be running in the same direction, so as I go, I use cable ties to secure everything and keep the wires looking neat. When you harness wires together, it's important the wires stay in the same configuration from the beginning to the end, meaning they won't be crossing back and forth over each other. It's much more pleasing to the eye when the wires run perfectly parallel with each other, keeping them in nice straight lines. If wires accidentally get crossed, then you can cut off a cable tie and just replace it. I think of the cable ties as a tool to help you temporarily hold things together as you work. You can expect to cut them off a few times and put on a new one as you need, to add a wire or remove a wire from the harness. Wiring a guitar is tedious to many, but there's an art form to it, and if you have patience, it can be very satisfying to do. As I mentioned before, I'm wiring it linearly, so as the harness approaches a component like a potentiometer or the selector switch, whatever wire goes to that component exits the harness and wires up as needed, and any new wires from that component will join the harness and keep moving along with it, like passengers on a train. At each stop, there will be some wires leaving the train and new passengers will jump on. But the train keeps moving toward its final destination, which in this case will be the output jack.
Since push-pull pots have a switch mounted to the back side of them, they take up a bit more space in the control cavity, so I need to make sure that the harness will be moving in a path around the pots. They can't go under the pots because these pots are too tall.
When I set the pickguard into place, I can see it isn't sitting down correctly on the guitar. I discovered the selector switch was bumping into the body inside the guitar. The easiest solution is to get the Dremel out and remove a little bit of the wood where they're making contact. After another test fit, it's looking good. Then I touched up the inside of the guitar with some flat black paint on a small brush. This is a rechargeable 9-volt battery. I've never used one of these in a guitar, but I've always wanted to try it out. I reached out to my customer Anthony, and he agreed that this could make for a really cool feature. You can buy them on Amazon, they're $15 for 2, and they come with a charger and a case. I'll leave a link to them in the description below, along with a lot of other parts, supplies, and tools that I used in this build.
With the rechargeable batteries, I can send the customer 2 batteries, so when the first battery starts to die, they can have the second battery charged up on standby, and when it's time for a string change and some cleaning or maintenance, they can pop the pickguard off and just switch the batteries, instead of removing the battery, waiting for it to recharge, and then reinstalling it. And that can be annoying to have to wait for it to recharge while your guitar is taken apart. Now they can simply swap the battery and go recharge the first battery to have it on hand for the next time they have to do a battery swap. The batteries come with a case, so you could return the recharged battery to the case and store it in your guitar case until you need to use it.
The battery fits nicely in the middle pickup cavity. In the wiring harness, I left a couple extra wires that will attach from the battery wires to the output jack. These wires here will connect to the battery positive and negative terminals, and these will attach to the output jack, which will act as a switch to disconnect the battery when the guitar is unplugged to save battery life.
Now everything looks pretty good, but at this point I was still trying to figure out the best way to make this pickguard detachable. Normally when you wire a pickguard, it's hardwired to the guitar. You can't just fully remove it. But I wanted to come up with a way to make the pickguard unplug from the guitar so you can easily disconnect it and set it aside if needed. Do you guys like my shirt? It's the first official Trash to Thrash merch, and it's available now at guitarguts.com. Link is in the description below. I have a few different t-shirt designs up now, including this Trash to Thrash shirt, the Time to Shred shirt, and Sunday Morning Shred shirts. Plus, if you have a little one like I do, I got baby onesies. When I first had my boy, I was looking all over for cool guitar-related baby clothes, and there weren't a lot of good options. Well, these are designs I came up with and made, and now your little rock star can represent some cool guitar outfits. I have more t-shirt designs and baby stuff coming, so keep an eye out for all that. They make great gifts too, so for all you aunts and uncles and friends of new parents, go grab some gear for the newest member of your life. I appreciate you all watching. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts on this project are so far, and be sure to hit the like button on this video, and hit the bell to be notified every time a new video drops here on the channel. If you missed episodes 1 or 2, those are linked down in the description below. I'll see you guys right back here tomorrow. Rock on, my friends. The Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat project. The guitar's now been disassembled, sanded, painted, and mostly wired up. Today, we'll finish the wiring and get this thing ready to play. Should be smooth sailing, right? Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new video drops. This is part 4 of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat mini-series.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old, beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray, and this is part 4 of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrat mini-series. This is a multi-part series where all week long I'm posting new episodes daily until this guitar is complete. In the first 3 episodes, I showed you Anthony's Strat clone, and we started the rebuild, taking the things we've done on past guitars and creating a Guitar Guts monster with all my favorite features, plus a bunch of new things I've never done on a guitar. Today we're going to finish up the wiring and get the guitar all wrapped up, as long as everything goes smoothly.
The pickguard's basically all wired up, and before I drop it into the guitar permanently, I'm going to test it out. So I have these test clips on there, which connect the battery here on the bench, and you can see the kill switch light was lit up, so everything's good here. I can take those off now. And to make sure the actual pickups are working, I'll use my test clamps to hook up the output jack, and I'll use another guitar that I could lay right over the pickups and strum the strings, and the Fishman pickups in the pickguard will pick up the vibration from this other guitar. If you're wondering, that is a small guitar. It's a Steinberger headless guitar, so it's very compact and very easy to hold directly over the pickups of the pickguard, and I can give it a couple strums and these pickups will pick up the Steinberger strings. Then I used a screwdriver to tap on the pull pieces of the pickups to make sure that the selector switch is working properly. Everything's working perfect. Now I need to secure the battery to the guitar. I use these 9-volt battery holders, which I like because they're pre-wired and the battery snaps into them, holding them securely. But this one's just a little too big, so some modifications are in order. I brought it over to the bandsaw and made some cuts so it fit into the middle pickup cavity. I think this looks pretty good, but it needs some mounting holes. And just like that, it's ready to drop in.
In the past, I've painted 9-volt batteries to match guitars, but when the battery dies, the customer needs new custom painted batteries to match the guitar. I've tried to come up with a sleeve or something that can be transferred to a new battery, but I think we've kind of solved that problem with the rechargeable batteries. Another thing is the surface of the batteries. They don't feel like they take paint well. Like if you scratch them with your fingernail, they'll probably scratch the paint off, so I had to come up with something better than that.
And for that, I thought of a vinyl wrap. I cut up a piece of black vinyl to wrap the battery with. Then I used my vinyl cutting machine to make some splatter cutouts using neon green material that matched the body. Then I transferred the splatter over to the battery, and it looks really good. I went ahead and did this with 2 batteries, so now the customer has a backup that looks just as good as the main battery. Here you can see the vinyl wrapped battery sitting in its place, and it looks pretty slick if I do say so myself. I've also got the wires routed through the hole I drilled over to the control cavity. I'll put the backup battery in this case with the charger, and I'll send it to the customer along with the guitar so they always have a backup ready to go in case they need to swap the batteries out. This is the output jack we're going to be using, and it's actually a stereo output jack, which is a little bit bigger than the original output jack, so we're going to have to do some modification to the jack plate. Usually my go-to tool for enlarging a hole would be a reamer like this one, but the metal's a little too hard for the reamer to really have an effect on it. So I flipped the jack plate over and mounted it to a scrap piece of wood. And now I can safely secure it in a vise without damaging the jack plate, and I can drill it out a little bit larger using just a regular drill bit. Now the stereo output jack slips right through. Success! It can be hard to get a wrench inside the jack plate, so I use a nut driver to tighten the nut fully. Since this guitar has a clear pickguard, I want the wiring in the inside of the guitar to look as clean as possible, and if you look real close in the corner, you can see I've routed a black wire along the edge. That's the ground wire that's going to go from the battery over to the output jack right here. But after wiring up the output jack and setting it into place, it's not sitting down all the way where it's supposed to. It's not lining up with the mounting holes. So I'm going to have to remove a little bit of material inside here, again using the Dremel. This time I'll be using a mini sanding drum to remove some material. The stereo output jack has an extra prong on the end, so it just needed a little material removed, and now it should fit well. And once again, the Dremel saved the day. The output jack plate fits perfectly in there now. I had mentioned before that I left a couple wires here in the wire harness to connect to the output jack and to the battery. But I wanted to find a way to make the pickguard fully removable and not hardwired all the time. So I picked up these connectors that have 5 wires on each of them, and they made up to each other. Using these, we'll be able to unplug the pickguard and completely remove it whenever maintenance is needed. I got these connectors on Amazon, and I'll include a link down in the description below, along with a lot of the other parts that I used on this build. These connectors came with 5 wires on each side, but I'm only going to be using 3 connections, so using a pin tool, I could actually remove 2 of the wires pretty easily. I bought these in bulk, so I'm going to be using them on a lot of future builds, I can tell. The color codes worked out perfect too. We have a red wire for the battery positive, a green for the ground, and a black for the hot. To secure the wires that I've routed into the corners of the cavity, I'll use some super glue and a helping hands to hold them in place while the glue dries. Now again, with the help of my helping hands, actually 2 of them, I'll connect the connectors wiring to the guitar's body side of the equation. After soldering the 3 wires together, I'll use a heat gun to shrink down all the shrink tubing. I use smaller 1/16 inch heat shrink for the individual wires, and then I'll use larger 3/16 inch heat shrink to slide over all my individual smaller heat shrinks just to give it a cleaner look. And I'll do the same thing over on the pickguard side. We'll join the hot wire with the black wire, we'll connect the ground to the green wire, and I'll solder the red wire over to our other red wires on the pickguard, which go to the 2 pickups and the kill switch to provide power. You can actually see there's a resistor along with the 2 red wires from the pickups because the kill switch needs a resistor to go between the battery and the wiring for it. Then I used a heat gun to shrink all the heat shrink down. I actually have a couple different heat guns, but I prefer this real small compact one over to my big large heat gun. You can get these ones on Amazon as well. The smaller one is just so much simpler to work with here on my workbench. Alright, at this point the guitar's all put back together, we got the strings on it, and it is looking awesome. I plugged it in, it sounds awesome, but there's a couple issues with the playability. The frets are pretty uneven, there's a couple high spots and low spots here and there, and I contacted the owner of the guitar, Anthony, told him what's going on, and he said, yeah, go ahead, do a fret level and recrown. So that's exactly what we're going to do. Alright, well I thought it was smooth sailing once the electronics were finished, but we still have a pretty huge hurdle. Getting this thing to play great. If you want to help support Guitar Guts and you want me to post more often on this channel, you can sign up to the Patreon page and get an extra behind the scenes video each week. Plus, you get ad-free versions of everything I post on YouTube, you get access to the Guitar Guts Discord channel, and you get automatically entered into my guitar raffles.
If you just want the extra videos each week, you could join my YouTube membership for just $5 a month, and you get exclusive behind the scenes footage, and you can see more of what I'm currently working on. Also, over at GuitarGuts.com, we got all kinds of merch. Guitar Guts coasters, koozies, stickers, t-shirts, baby onesies, my signature kill boost pedal, kill switches, pickups, and even some guitars. So go pick some of that stuff up. I have links for all the things I just talked about in the description below. Guys, the finish line is in sight. This guitar is almost finished. Come back tomorrow morning for the final part of this series. Thanks so much for watching. Rock on, my friends. The finish line is in sight, but we still have a tough final stretch to get this guitar in playing order. It looks awesome, it sounds awesome, but the playability is an issue. That's not going to stop us. We've come too far. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified whenever a new video drops. This is the final part of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrap mini-series.
For more than 20 years, I've been obsessed with guitars. From playing them, to working on them, to buying and collecting them, I've built quite the collection of awesome custom guitars. Now, I'm turning my passion into a profession by seeking out old beat-up guitars and giving them new life, all while trying to make a profit. I'll be searching everywhere for used gear that I can refret, rewire, repaint, whatever it takes to make it a real shredder. This is Trash to Thrash.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Trash to Thrash. I'm your host Mark Murray and this is part 5 of the Alien Blood Stealth Frankenstrap mini-series. This is a multi-part series where all week long I've been posting new episodes daily until I completed this guitar. Well, the finish line is in sight, but it's still going to be some hard work to finish this guitar because right when I got the paint job looking great and the electronics working perfectly, I strung it up and the frets are buzzing and causing all sorts of playing issues. So now we must tackle the final boss of this guitar, leveling and crowning the frets. Let's get into it. Alright, at this point the guitar's all put back together, we got the strings on it, and it is looking awesome. I plugged it in, it sounds awesome, but there's a couple issues with the playability. The frets are pretty uneven, there's a couple high spots and low spots here and there, and I contacted the owner of the guitar, Anthony, told him what's going on, and he said, yeah, go ahead, do a fret level and recrown. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I got my neck jig out over here. We're going to pop the neck off, attach it to the neck jig. Then we're going to level the frets using this StewMac fret leveler. It's just a simple file that you run up and down the fretboard and get them all nice and even, but it's going to flatten the frets out. They're not going to have that nice crown shape anymore. So another tool that StewMac makes that's really awesome is the Z file. The Z file is a special type of file that you run across the top of the frets, and it's got diamond grit inside the groove, and it's just an excellent tool for creating a new crown shape. It creates kind of like more of a point, and it's just very simple to use, very efficient with its diamond grit, and it's a proven tool that does the job fast and accurate. In the past, I've always used this older StewMac file, and it's a great file too, but it's not as efficient as the Z file. They look almost exactly the same, but when you look in the grooves themselves, this is more of an old school traditional file, where the Z file has diamond grit and just does the job way more efficiently. You could actually file in both directions, whereas this file, you can only go in one direction, and you have to clean out the threading on it pretty often. So it's not as efficient, but it does do the job pretty good. Another thing about the Z file that's really nice is it comes to a point so that you can't file too low. With this file, if you keep going on the top of a fret after you've leveled them, you could actually reshape it and bring it down to a lower spot. So this one kind of creates a safeguard to make it so that you're not going to lower the fret too low. So this file here is actually going to be doing the work to level the fretboard, whereas these types of files are going to come back and reshape it into the proper shape so that we get a nice accurate point on the top of the fret. After using this leveling file, the frets are going to have a real flat top on them, and that's good for getting them level, but when you go to play the guitar, it's going to make all kinds of buzz because you really want the string and the fret to come in contact with each other as little as possible. If you have a big flat edge, the string is going to sit on that flat edge on the top of the fret, and it's going to create a ton of buzz. These are going to refine that flat edge on the top into like more of a point, where the string is just going to touch the top of the fret and give you nice clear notes.
Now I've got the neck loaded onto my neck jig here. And before I do any filing or leveling, I'm going to adjust the truss rod to get the neck to be sitting flat. When the neck is under tension, it's got a slight bow to it, meaning the middle of the neck around frets 8 through 10 are going to sit a little bit lower than frets 1 and 21. But when you remove the strings, you remove that tension, meaning those middle frets are now going to sit a little bit higher than the 1st and 21st frets. That's the whole job of the truss rod, to counter the tension that the strings put on the neck, and to keep the neck close to straight. When you adjust the truss rod, you want to do it in small increments and periodically check it with a straight edge that goes across the entire fretboard. Now I can see it's pretty close to perfectly flat, and we're good to level it out. So I'm using this 6-inch StewMac file to go up and down the entire fretboard in long strokes to start to cut down the highest frets and bring them down to the lower frets level. At this point, the frets appear to be flat. Visually, I can see that they all have that flat, ground down look. And to keep the workspace clean, I'll quickly vacuum everything up and get rid of all those metal shavings left over from the frets. To make sure everything truly is level, I'm going to tape up the entire fretboard, and I'll bring you in closer so you can see how ground down all the frets look. While working on this guitar, I had another side project going on, and tomorrow, here on the channel, I'll reveal the making of this project. But I can't wait till tomorrow to show you guys this. Check out this custom painted Sega Genesis I did, complete with alien blood splatter and a green LED for the power indicator. I love this thing, and if you love it as much as I do, it can be yours. It's available right now at GuitarGuts.com, and there's only one available in the entire world, so if you want it, you better hurry up and grab it. I'll have a link in the description of this video if you want to buy it. It comes with all the necessary cables to hook it up, and a pair of Sega wireless controllers. These are so cool, I didn't even know they made these. I'll throw in a standard controller as well, so you don't have to worry about battery life if you're going to be playing alone. Tomorrow, I'll post a video showing the cleaning and modding of this console, so come back tomorrow for yet another part in this series. Next, I'll use a Sharpie to draw a black line across the tops of all of the frets. And now I'll run my StewMac file back over the entire fretboard, and if this fretboard's truly level, the Sharpie marks should wear away evenly. If I end up with Sharpie left over on a couple of the frets, then I know those frets are still low. And that would mean that I would have to keep filing and get everything nice and even. I went over the whole fretboard and I did find a couple spots that still didn't grind evenly, so I'm going to file some more. Then I'll recheck it with my level, and if I need to, I'll do that process again. Now it looks good, so I'm going to draw new Sharpie lines across all the frets again. And now I'm going to use the Z file to re-crown the frets. This is going to give them that pointed shape that I was talking about earlier. The reason I remarked these frets with Sharpie before using the Z file was because the Sharpie is going to leave a nice thick line over the frets. But as I refine the top of it with the Z file, that line is going to get thinner and thinner, and the goal is to get it almost to a hairline. So I'm going to work my way all the way down to the 21st fret, refining each one of these to have a nice proper crown on it. Now, even though I've gone over the fretboard a couple times, I do have a couple frets down here that are high, and they're only high in a couple spots on the neck, meaning maybe the low E side is fine, but the high E side is sticking up a little bit. Or maybe the G and the D string are creating a little bit of buzz, but the rest of the strings are fine. So using a StewMac fret rocker, I can pinpoint the exact spot, and they even make another type of fret rocker that's got a diamond edge on it that you can grind down the frets even more with. A lot of work goes into getting perfectly level frets, and that's the difference between a real good fret job and a cheaper one that you might get on a entry-level guitar. I might be able to get away with setting up the guitar like this if I raise the action up higher, but then if my customer wants lower action or decides to lower it later himself, he's going to run into buzzing issues. This is another StewMac file that I have here that has a nice angle on the edge, and again it has a diamond edge, so you can sand and level the frets easily with the strings on. The reason I like that is because now the neck has tension on it, and this is how the neck's going to sit in the real world. To do spot fixes, I love this thing. But once again, since I've been filing on the frets, they're going to need to be recrowned in these spots. So to do that, I'll remove the strings once again, recrown them with the Z file, then give them a real light sanding with some 600 grit sandpaper. From 600, I usually move up to about 1500 grit, sanding with 800 and 1200 in between there. And then I'll apply a little bit of polish to each one of the frets. Then once again, the Dremel comes into play. Using a real low speed setting, I'll go down the fretboard again, polishing them with the Dremel. This is the final step to refretting or to recrowning a guitar, and this is what's going to give it that mirror finish on the frets, and the strings will just glide across them. I have a full tutorial that I'll link in the description to this video showing step by step how I do this. Now, I already did oil the fretboard a few steps before, but I'm noticing it's still looking a little thirsty. It's a pretty old guitar, so I'm going to use some more lemon oil on this fretboard. I pour a bead down the center of the fretboard and then just brush it in using a small craft brush. And now it's time to install the nut. Using 2 small drops of super glue, I'm going to glue the nut in, and the glue should be applied to the side of the nut where it has contact with the fretboard, not the foot of the nut where it's going to glue onto the neck. I'll use a clamp to hold it into position. Now this guitar's just about done. We have a couple final steps to do, like reattach the neck, restring it, and attach the truss rod cover. I'm not actually going to screw the truss rod cover on yet because once the strings are on, I'm probably going to make one final adjustment to it. But look how cool that thing looks. It totally matches the headstock and the theme of this guitar. Now I'm going to throw this guitar back together. Are you guys ready to see what this thing looks like finished up? Are you ready for the reveal? What'd you guys think of this beast? I had a blast this week recording and posting all these videos, plus reliving this guitar rebuild. My customer Anthony has been commenting on the videos all week. It's so cool to hear he's loving the guitar. And for a cheaper Strat clone, this thing has been completely upgraded and not only looks awesome, it sounds killer, and it plays great. If you want to send your guitar into the Guitar Guts shop for a customization and rebuild, send me an email to mark@guitarguts.com and let me know what your vision is for your guitar. If you have a guitar that means a lot to you, but you just never pick it up because it sounds bad, it plays bad, or maybe even it just looks bad, we can fix that. Remember, over at guitarguts.com, we got all kinds of merch. Guitar Guts coasters, koozies, stickers, t-shirts, baby onesies, my signature kill switch pedal, kill switches, picks, and even some guitars. So please go pick some of that up. I have links for all these things down in the description below this video. Come back tomorrow morning for yet another video which will be in the same style of Trash to Thrash, where I refinished the Sega Genesis and took an old beat up gaming console and turned it into a beautiful little showpiece. Thanks so much for watching. Rock on, my friends.